The elevator doors opened to the boardroom where 12 executives waited, but Adrian Vale's mind was somewhere else entirely. On the woman who'd vanished 3 hours ago with nothing but a hastily scrawled note that read, "He found me. I'm sorry." His phone buzzed. An unknown number, a photo of Clara, unconscious, a zip tied to a chair in what looked like a warehouse. Below it, "You took what's mine, now I'm taking what's yours." Before we dive into this story, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city name. I want to see how far this journey reaches. Now, let's go back to where it all began. 3 months earlier, Adrian Vale sat in his daughter's pediatrician's waiting room, scrolling through acquisition reports that should have excited him, but didn't. The pharmaceutical company in Berlin was undervalued. The tech startup in Singapore had potential. The numbers made sense. They always made sense. That was the problem. "Mr. Vale?" The nurse smiled at him. "Emma's ready." He stood, pocketing his phone, and followed her down the hallway where his 7-year-old daughter sat on an examination table, swinging her legs and humming something off-key. Emma looked up when he entered, her face brightening in that way that still surprised him, like he was someone worth being excited about. "Dad, Dr. Morrison says I grew half an inch." "Did you now?" He ruffled her dark hair so much like her mother's it sometimes hurt to look at. "Pretty soon you'll be taller than me." "That's not possible. You're giant." Dr. Morrison laughed, making notes on her tablet. "She's perfectly healthy, Mr. Vale, though I'd still like to see her eating more vegetables and less—" She glanced at Emma with mock severity. "Chicken nuggets." "They're a food group," Emma said seriously. Adrian caught the doctor's eye and shrugged. "We're working on it." 20 minutes later, they were back in his Mercedes. Emma buckled into the back seat and already absorbed in some game on her tablet. Adrian pulled into Seattle traffic, half listening to her commentary about animated characters he didn't recognize. "Are you listening?" Emma asked suddenly. "Of course." "Then what did I just say?" He glanced in the rearview mirror. "Something about a purple dragon?" "Dad," she sighed with the exhaustion of someone much older. "I said I'm hungry. Can we go somewhere that's not the usual place?" The usual place was a sterile Italian restaurant 2 blocks from their penthouse, the kind of establishment where the staff knew his name and his order and brought Emma's plain pasta without being asked. He'd been going there for 2 years because it was convenient and required no thought. "Where do you want to go?" "Somewhere with lots of people and noise. And oh, there!" She pointed out the window at a brick building with a hand-painted sign that read Rosewood Kitchen. "Emma, that's— Please? Just this once?" He should have said no. Should have explained that he had calls to return, emails to answer, a conference in Tokyo in 18 hours that he hadn't finished prepping for. But Emma was looking at him with those wide, hopeful eyes, and he'd canceled their last 3 weekend plans because of work emergencies that probably could have waited. "All right," he said, swinging into a parking spot, "just this once." The restaurant was nothing like his usual haunts. Mismatched furniture, exposed brick, Edison bulbs hanging from the ceiling like deliberately unfinished thoughts. The air smelled like garlic, and something sweet he couldn't identify. Every table was occupied, voices overlapping in a dozen different conversations, and for a moment Adrian felt genuinely out of place. A hostess approached, young, tired-looking, with a smile that seemed practiced. "Two?" "Yes." "Right this way." She led them to a small table near the window. Emma immediately started examining the menu, which appeared to be handwritten in chalk. Adrian sat down, checking his phone out of habit. 4 new emails, none urgent. "Can I get you started with drinks?" The voice came from his left, soft, careful, with an accent he couldn't quite place. He looked up. She wasn't beautiful in the sharp, maintained way of the women he usually met at fundraisers and corporate dinners. Her beauty was quieter, almost accidental. Dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, minimal makeup, wearing the same black uniform as the other servers. But there was something in her face, an intelligence behind her eyes, and underneath that, a wariness that felt familiar. "Water for me," Adrian said. "Emma?" "Do you have lemonade?" his daughter asked. The woman smiled, and it transformed her whole face for a second. "We do. Homemade. Would you like to try it?" "Yes, please." She wrote it down, started to turn away, then paused. "The special tonight is pan-seared salmon with asparagus risotto. It's very good if you like fish. I hate fish, Emma announced. Emma, Adrian said automatically. But the woman laughed, genuinely, not the polite customer service sound he'd expected. That's fair. The chicken marsala is safer, or we have excellent pasta. Pasta, Emma said immediately. Perfect choice. She glanced at Adrian. And for you? I'll try the salmon. She nodded and walked away, moving between tables with an efficiency that suggested she'd been doing this for a long time. Adrian watched her stop at a table of what sounded like French tourists, switching languages mid-sentence without hesitation. Then to an elderly couple where she spoke what might have been Italian, and then to a family with small children where she dropped into Spanish. Dad, you're staring, Emma whispered loudly. He picked up the menu. I'm reading. You're definitely staring. Their food arrived 20 minutes later. The pasta for Emma, salmon for him, both presented simply but carefully. The woman set the plates down with practiced movements, refilled their water glasses without being asked. Enjoy, she said, already turning to the next table. The salmon was excellent. Adrian ate slowly, listening to Emma chatter about school and her friends and some elaborate playground politics he couldn't quite follow. But part of his attention kept drifting to the waitress moving through the room, appearing and disappearing between tables like she was trying to remain unnoticed. When she came to clear their plates, Emma looked up at her with sudden curiosity. How many languages do you speak? The woman blinked, caught off guard. A few. I heard you talking in French, in Spanish, and something else. Italian, the woman said softly. And Portuguese. And a little Mandarin, though not as well. That's so cool. I only know English. Well, and a little Spanish from school, but I'm bad at it. You're not bad at it, Adrian said. You just started. The woman smiled at Emma, a real smile this time. Learning languages is like building muscles. It gets easier the more you practice. Do you have kids? Emma asked, and Adrian felt his face warm because his daughter had absolutely no sense of appropriate boundaries. But the woman didn't seem bothered. No, no kids. Oh, Emma processed this. Well, you'd be good at it. You're nice. Emma, let her get back to work, Adrian said quietly. The woman met his eyes for just a second, long enough for him to see something complicated pass through her expression, before she nodded and moved away. They paid at the front. The bill was reasonable, almost absurdly so, compared to what Adrian was used to spending on dinner. He left a tip that was probably too large, and when the hostess tried to hand him back part of it, he waved her off. Outside, Seattle was doing its usual evening drizzle. Emma skipped ahead to the car, but Adrian paused on the sidewalk, looking back through the restaurant's window. He could see the waitress inside talking to the chef, her posture relaxed in a way it hadn't been with customers. Dad, come on, Emma called. He unlocked the car and they drove home, back to the penthouse with its floor-to-ceiling windows and its uncomfortable silence. Emma went to do homework while Adrian stood in his kitchen, looking at the stack of takeout menus magneted to his refrigerator, and thought about a woman who spoke 5 languages while serving pasta to strangers. He went back to Rosewood Kitchen 3 days later. Not because of her, or that's what he told himself as he walked in alone, laptop bag over his shoulder like he just needed somewhere to work over lunch. The hostess recognized him, seemed surprised, and led him to a table in the back. She wasn't working. He ordered coffee from a different server, opened his laptop, and told himself the slight disappointment he felt was ridiculous. He went back 2 days after that. This time she was there, moving between tables with that same careful efficiency. She didn't notice him at first, or pretended not to. He ordered the salmon again, worked through emails, stayed longer than necessary. When she finally came to refill his coffee, she paused, clearly recognizing him. The salmon again? She asked. It's good salmon. We have other things, you know. I'm a creature of habit. Something shifted in her expression. Amusement, maybe, or suspicion. Most people don't eat here 3 times in a week unless they live in the neighborhood. Maybe I'm moving to the neighborhood. Are you? No, he admitted. I live downtown. She studied him for a moment, and he had the distinct impression of being evaluated and found something. Not wanting exactly, just complicated. I should get back to work, she said finally. I didn't ask your name last time. I know. She started to turn away. I'm Adrian. She stopped, looked back at him with an expression he couldn't read. Clara. Clara, he repeated, and she frowned slightly, like she'd just realized she'd made a mistake. Then she was gone, absorbed back into the rhythm of the restaurant, and Adrian sat there with his cooling coffee thinking that he'd just crossed some invisible line without meaning to. He came back the next week, and the week after that. It became a pattern, lunch at Rosewood Kitchen twice a week, sometimes 3 times if his schedule allowed. He always sat at different tables, always ordered different things, trying to make it seem casual even though they both knew it wasn't. Clara remained polite but distant. She took his orders, refilled his drinks, made brief small talk that never went anywhere meaningful. But Adrian was patient. Patience was something he'd learned early in business: how to wait for the right moment, how to read people, how to know when to push and when to let things develop on their own. It was nearly a month before she spoke to him first. He was there on a Wednesday afternoon, the restaurant quieter than usual, working through a contract that was giving him a headache. Clara appeared at his table with coffee he hadn't ordered. "You looked like you needed it," she said, setting down the cup. "That obvious?" "You've been staring at the same page for 20 minutes. He closed the laptop. "Acquisition deal. The numbers work, but the people don't." "Then maybe the numbers don't actually work." It was such a simple observation, but it cut through 2 weeks of arguments with his legal team. He looked up at her, surprised. "You're probably right." "I usually am." She said it without arrogance, just stating a fact. "About people, anyway. Numbers aren't my thing." "What is your thing?" She hesitated, and he saw the wariness slide back into place. "Languages, patterns, staying out of trouble." "Are you in trouble?" "Not currently." The way she said it suggested that might not always be the case. Someone called her name from across the restaurant. The manager, gesturing toward a table. Clara straightened. "I should go." "Wait." He didn't know what made him say it. "Are you working Friday night?" "Why?" "Because I'm thinking of bringing my daughter back here. She liked it last time." Clara's expression softened slightly at the mention of Emma. "The one who asked about languages?" "That's her. She's sweet." "She's relentless," Adrian said. "But yes, also sweet." "I'm not working Friday." Clara picked up her tray. "But I hope you both enjoy your dinner." She walked away before he could respond, and Adrian sat there feeling like he'd just failed some kind of test he didn't know he was taking. Emma did ask to go back to Rosewood Kitchen, as it turned out. Not on Friday, she had a sleepover that got rescheduled, but the following Tuesday. They went for early dinner, and Claire was working, and Adrian told himself the way his mood lifted when he saw her was about Emma's happiness, not his own. Emma waved enthusiastically when Claire approached their table. "Hi, I remember you." "I remember you too," Clara said, smiling. "The language enthusiast. I've been practicing my Spanish. Quiero pasta, por favor." "Muy bien," Clara said, and Emma beamed. "Your pronunciation is getting better." They ordered pasta for Emma, chicken marsala for Adrian, and Clara lingered at their table slightly longer than necessary, asking Emma about school and her Spanish class. Adrian watched the way his daughter lit up under the attention, chattering about things she normally kept to herself, and felt something uncomfortably close to gratitude. When Clara brought their food, Emma asked, "Do you like working here?" "Emma," Adrian warned, but Clara laughed. "It's okay. I do like it. The people are kind. The food is good. It's a nice place to be." "But what do you really want to do, Zik?" Emma pressed. "Like, if you could do anything." Clara set down their plates carefully. "That's a big question." "Mom always said big questions are the important ones." Emma said it casually, not noticing the way Adrian's entire body tensed. Clara's eyes flickered to him, just for a second, before returning to Emma. "Your mom sounds smart." "She died when I was 4, Emma said matter-of-factly. "I don't remember her much. Just little things." "I'm sorry," Clara said softly, and Adrian could hear that she meant it. "It's okay. Dad takes good care of me." Emma smiled up at him, unaware of the weight she'd just added to the conversation, "even though he works too much." "Emma," Adrian said, more sharply than he intended. "What?" "You do." Clara excused herself, and Adrian spent the rest of the meal trying to redirect Emma's attention away from uncomfortable truths. But he kept catching glimpses of Clara across the room, and once he could have sworn she was looking back. When they paid, Emma asked if they could come back again soon. "We'll see," Adrian said, which meant yes, and both of them knew it. Outside, Emma grabbed his hand as they walked to the car. "I like her." "Who?" "Clara. She's nice, and she doesn't treat me like I'm stupid." "Nobody thinks you're stupid, Emma. Lots of people do. They use those weird high voices and ask me about princesses, even though I hate princesses." She squeezed his hand. "You should ask her on a date." Adrian nearly tripped. "What?" "Clara, you should ask her out. You look at her the way people look at each other in movies." "I do not." "You totally do." Emma grinned up at him. "It's okay, Dad. I wouldn't mind." "Mind what?" "If you liked someone." She said it simply, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "You're alone a lot." "That seems sad." Adrian unlocked the car, not trusting himself to respond. Emma climbed in, already moving on to the next topic, but her words sat heavy in his chest the whole drive home. That night, after Emma was asleep, Adrian stood in his home office with a glass of whiskey. He wasn't drinking and looked out at Seattle's glittering skyline. He'd built an empire, employed thousands of people, made decisions that moved markets, but his 7-year-old daughter had just called him sad, and he couldn't argue. He went back to Rosewood Kitchen the next day. Clara was working the lunch shift, and this time when she saw him, something shifted in her expression. Not quite warmth, but maybe resignation, like she'd been expecting this. "Your usual table is occupied," she said when he approached the hostess stand. "I'll sit anywhere." She led him to a corner booth, set down a menu he wouldn't read. "Coffee?" "Please." When she returned with it, he said, "My daughter thinks I should ask you out." Clara's hand stilled on the coffee pot. "What?" "Apparently I look at you the way people look at each other in movies." He tried to keep his tone light. According to Emma, anyway. She's 7, almost 8, and terrifyingly perceptive. Clara set down the pot, crossed her arms. "Mr. Vale?" "Adrian." "Adrian." She said his name carefully, like testing its weight. "I'm not interested in whatever this is." "This?" "You. Coming here. The attention." "Is it unwanted?" She looked at him for a long moment. "Yes." He should have left it at that, should have apologized, paid for his coffee, and never come back. But something in her eyes contradicted her words. A flicker of uncertainty, maybe, or fear. "Okay," he said quietly. "I'll stop coming by." Relief crossed her face, followed immediately by something that looked like disappointment. "Thank you." She walked away, and Adrian sat there with his untouched coffee, feeling like he'd just made either the best or worst decision of his year. He didn't go back for 2 weeks. It was harder than it should have been. He thought about Clara more than was reasonable, wondered what her story was, why she spoke 5 languages but worked serving tables, what she was so clearly running from. But he'd been told to leave her alone, and despite what his competitors might think, Adrian did respect boundaries. Emma noticed his absence from Rosewood Kitchen immediately. "Did something happen?" she asked one night over their usual boring pasta at the usual boring Italian place. "What do you mean?" "We haven't gone to the place with Clara." "She asked me to stop coming around." Emma frowned. "Why?" "Because sometimes people aren't ready for attention." "Did you do something weird?" "Probably." He smiled despite himself. "I'm not great at this stuff, Em." "You're not great at a lot of stuff," she said loyally, "but you're still pretty okay." 3 days later, Adrian was working late in his office when his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. "Mr. Vale?" The voice was familiar, the manager from Rosewood Kitchen. "This is Marcus Chen. We met briefly. I remember. Is everything all right?" "It's Clara." Marcus sounded worried. "She's in the back room and something's wrong. She won't talk to anyone, but she had your business card in her apron and I thought maybe—" Adrian was already grabbing his keys. "I'll be right there." The restaurant was closed when he arrived. Chairs up on tables, lights dimmed. Marcus let him in through the back entrance, leading him to a small office where Clara sat on the floor, back against the wall, shaking. "I'll give you privacy," Marcus said quietly, and left. Adrian approached slowly, like she was something wild that might bolt. "Clara?" She looked up, and her face was streaked with tears. "You shouldn't be here. Marcus called me." "I told him not to call anyone." Her voice broke. I'm fine. You're sitting on the floor crying. That's not fine. She laughed, bitter, sharp. You don't know anything about me. I know you speak 5 languages, and you're scared of something, and you're trying very hard to disappear. He sat down on the floor across from her, deliberately keeping distance between them. I also know you wouldn't have kept my business card if you didn't think you might need it someday. Clara's face crumpled. For a moment he thought she'd tell him to leave, but instead she said, He found me. Who? My ex-fiancé. She wrapped her arms around herself. I got a message tonight on an email account I haven't used in 3 years, just 2 words. Found you. Adrian felt something cold settle in his chest. Do you think he's dangerous? I think he's angry, and angry men with money and connections are always dangerous. Tell me what happened. Why would I do that? Because you're scared and alone and clearly carrying something too heavy for one person. He kept his voice level, gentle. And because sometimes it helps to say things out loud. She studied him for a long moment, and he could see her weighing options, calculating risks. Finally, she took a shaky breath. My name isn't really Clara Hayes, she said. It's Clara Rousseau. 3 years ago, I was engaged to Damien Thorne, CEO of Thorne Financial. We were supposed to get married. Instead, he framed me for embezzlement, destroyed my reputation, and took everything I had. Adrian kept his expression neutral, even though the name Damien Thorne sent alarm bells ringing. He knew of the man, ruthless, connected, the kind of person who appeared in business magazines with headlines about innovation and philanthropy while bearing lawsuits in fine print. Why would he do that? Because I found out he was laundering money for people who make him look like a saint. And when I threatened to expose him, he made sure no one would ever believe me. Clara's voice hardened. He had connections, friends in law enforcement, in government. He buried evidence, manufactured documents with my signature. By the time I realized what he'd done, my own family thought I was guilty. Did you go to the police? The police believed him. Everyone believed him. She wiped her eyes angrily. So I ran, changed my name, moved across the country, learned to be invisible. And it worked for 3 years. Until tonight. Adrian processed this, connecting pieces. You're not just hiding from an ex. You're hiding from someone who wants to make sure you stay silent. Yes. And now he knows where you are. Yes. She looked at him, vulnerable in a way that made his chest tight. I have to leave Seattle, tomorrow probably. Start over somewhere else. Or, Adrian said carefully, you could let me help. Clara laughed bitterly. You can't help with this. You'd be surprised what I can do. Why would you even want to? You don't know me. He considered the question seriously. I know you're intelligent, kind to my daughter, and working a job you're overqualified for because you're trying to survive. I know someone hurt you badly and you're still here, still fighting. That's enough for me. You're insane. Probably. He stood, offered her his hand. But I'm also stubborn, and I have resources you don't. Let me help, Clara, or Rousseau, whoever you want to be. She stared at his outstretched hand like it might bite her. What do you want in return? Nothing. Everyone wants something. Then I want you to stop running. He kept his hand steady. Just for a minute, long enough to figure out if there's another option. Clara looked at him for a long time, assessing, calculating, searching for the trap. Whatever she saw in his face must have satisfied her, because she finally took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. Okay, she said quietly. 1 minute, then I'm gone. Adrian smiled. 1 minute, that's all I need. He was lying, of course. 1 minute would never be enough. That 1 minute stretched into an hour in Adrian's car, parked in the empty lot behind Rosewood Kitchen. Clara sat in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead while he made phone calls. First to his head of security, then to a lawyer he'd used for sensitive matters, then to someone whose title he didn't specify, but who apparently owed him a favor. You have a lot of people on speed dial, Clara said when he finally set down his phone. Comes with the territory. What territory is that exactly? I know you have money, the watch gives it away, but I don't actually know what you do. Adrian pulled out onto the street. I buy companies, fix them, sometimes sell them, sometimes keep them. It's boring. Boring people don't have head of security on speed dial. Fair point. He glanced at her. Where are you staying? A studio apartment in Greenwood, month-to-month lease under a different name. Pack a bag. You're staying somewhere else tonight. Clara's shoulders tensed. I'm not going home with you. I wasn't offering my home. I have a daughter, remember? I'm putting you in a hotel, somewhere with security cameras and a lobby guard and doors that actually lock. I can't afford... I can. He said it simply, without condescension. Let me do this, Clara. Please. She was quiet for a long moment. Why are you helping me? Because someone should have helped you 3 years ago and no one did. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got right now. They drove to her apartment, a rundown building that made Adrian's jaw tighten. Clara ran inside and emerged 10 minutes later with a duffel bag that looked like it held everything she owned. She didn't say goodbye to anyone, didn't leave a note, just got back in the car like she'd done this before. The hotel was downtown, upscale enough to have actual security, but not so flashy that she'd stand out. Adrian checked her in under a corporate account, handed her the keycard. Get some sleep, he said. We'll figure out next steps tomorrow. Clara held the keycard like it might dissolve. I'm still leaving Seattle. Maybe, but not tonight. She looked up at him, searching his face for something. You really think you can fix this? I think running hasn't worked so far. Maybe it's time to try standing still. He left before she could argue, but he sat in his car for 20 minutes afterward, making sure no one followed her to her room. Emma was asleep when he got home. Adrian checked on her, something he did every night, a ritual left over from when she was a baby, and he'd been terrified of doing everything wrong. She was sprawled across her bed, covers kicked off, clutching a stuffed elephant she'd had since she was 3. He pulled the blanket over her, kissed her forehead, and went to his office to start reading everything he could find about Damien Thorne. It was worse than he'd expected. Thorne Financial had a pristine public image, venture capital firm, tech investments, charitable foundation. But if you look deeper past the press releases and the glossy photos, there were patterns. Lawsuits settled quietly. Former employees who signed NDAs. Business partners who suddenly disappeared from public record. And then there was Clara, or rather, the ghost of her. 3-year-old news articles about Clara Rousseau, former VP at Thorne Financial, arrested for embezzling $12 million. The charges had been dropped due to insufficient evidence, but the damage was done. Her face was all over the internet, looking young and scared in her mugshot. Adrian pulled up her LinkedIn profile from before the scandal. Economics degree from Georgetown, MBA from Wharton. Spoke 6 languages, she'd undersold herself. She'd worked at Thorne Financial for 4 years, rising fast, engaged to the boss. Then nothing. The profile went dark. No updates, no new positions. Like she'd ceased to exist. He worked until 3 in the morning, building a timeline, taking notes, finding holes in Thorne's story. When he finally went to bed, his mind was still racing with possibilities. Emma found him asleep at his desk the next morning. Dad, you're drooling on important papers, she announced, poking his shoulder. He sat up, disoriented. What time is it? 7:30. Mrs. Chen is here. She says you didn't tell her you'd need her this morning, but she came anyway because she's a miracle worker. Emma tilted her head. Her words? Not mine. Adrian rubbed his face. Mrs. Chen was their housekeeper and occasional nanny, a woman in her 60s who ran their household with ruthless efficiency and never let him forget it. Tell her I'll be out in 5 minutes. Tell her yourself. I'm eating cereal. Emma skipped out and Adrian stood, his back protesting the night spent in a desk chair. He needed coffee, and a shower, and to check on Clara. He texted her from the kitchen while Mrs. Chen made pointed comments about his appearance. Late night? She asked, pouring him coffee he definitely didn't deserve. Work stuff. You look terrible. Thank you, Mrs. Chen. Very helpful. I speak truth. She set down the coffee pot. Emma says you've been distracted lately. Emma talks too much. Emma is perceptive, like her mother. Mrs. Chen's expression softened slightly. Whatever you're dealing with, don't shut her out. She notices more than you think. Adrian's phone buzzed. Clara. Still alive, haven't been murdered. You can stop checking. He typed back, meeting at my office, 10 a.m. I'll send a car. Clara. I can take the bus. Adrian. Humor me. She didn't respond, but 20 minutes later she sent him the hotel address, which he already had. The car service picked her up at 9:30. Adrian watched from his office window as she arrived, stepping out of the black sedan looking uncomfortable in clothes that didn't quite fit her anymore. like she'd lost weight since buying them. His assistant, Jennifer, buzzed him. "Ms. Hayes is here." "Send her in." Clara entered his office like she was preparing for an ambush. She looked around, taking in the floor-to-ceiling windows, the minimalist furniture, the art on the walls that cost more than most people's cars. "This is excessive," she said. "It's Seattle. Everything's excessive." "You have a couch in your office." "Sometimes I sleep here." "That's depressing." Adrian gestured to the chairs across from his desk. "Sit, please." She sat, but on the edge of the chair, ready to bolt. "What's this meeting about?" "I want to hire you." Clara blinked. "What?" "As a consultant. Languages, international relations, whatever title makes you comfortable. I need someone who can navigate complex conversations with overseas partners, and you're qualified." "You're offering me a fake job." "I'm offering you a real job, with real pay and real benefits and a real office." He slid a folder across the desk. "Also real safety. This building has security, background checks for everyone who works here. It's harder to get to you if you're surrounded by people." Clara opened the folder, scanned the contract inside. Her eyes widened at the salary. "This is insane. It's competitive. It's 3 times what I made at Thorne Financial." "Then you were underpaid." He leaned back. "Look, I know what you're thinking. This is charity, but I'm not a charitable person, Clara. I don't do things that don't benefit me, and having someone with your skill set on my team actually helps." "Doing what exactly?" "I'm acquiring a manufacturing company in Vietnam. The owner speaks limited English. My team speaks no Vietnamese." "You do." "I speak conversational Vietnamese, not business Vietnamese." "You'll figure it out." He said it with complete confidence. "You're smart enough." She stared at him for a long moment. "What's the catch?" "No catch. You work, you get paid. You help me close deals. I help you rebuild your life. Mutually beneficial arrangement. And Damien? I'm working on that separately." "How?" Adrian pulled up a file on his computer, turned the screen toward her. "I've been digging into Thorne Financial's records. Public filings, investment portfolios, partner agreements. There are inconsistencies." Clara leaned forward, studying the screen. "What kind of inconsistencies?" "Money moving in patterns that don't make sense. Offshore accounts that appear and disappear. It's subtle. Whoever set it up knew what they were doing, but it's there. I told the police this 3 years ago. The police didn't have motivation to look. I do." "Why? What's in this for you?" Adrian closed the laptop. "Honestly, I don't know yet. Maybe I'm just bored. Maybe I like complicated problems. Or maybe—" He paused. "Maybe I'm tired of watching powerful people hurt others and get away with it." Clara sat back, processing this. "You barely know me." "I know enough." "You really don't. Then work for me and I'll learn more." He stood, walked to the window. "Look, Clara, you can keep running. Change your name again, move to another city, start over for the 4th or 5th time. Eventually you'll get tired or sloppy and Thorne will find you again. Or—" He turned to face her. "You can stay. Let me help you build a case. Take back what he stole." "He stole everything." "Then let's steal it back." She laughed, but it was hollow. "You make it sound simple. It won't be simple. It'll probably be messy and complicated and take longer than either of us want. But it's an option that isn't running." Clara looked down at the contract in her hands. "I don't trust easily. I noticed. And I don't like owing people." "You won't owe me. You'll work. I'll pay you. That's how jobs function." She met his eyes. "If I do this, and I'm not saying I will, I need ground rules." "Name them." "I'm not your charity project. I'm not your damsel in distress. I do my job, you do yours, and we keep our personal lives separate." "Agreed." "I mean it, Adrian. No more showing up at my workplace. No more midnight rescues. No more—" She waved her hand vaguely. "Whatever this is." "This. You know what I mean." He did know. He also knew that trying to keep personal and professional separate when you were actively investigating someone's attempted murder of your character was probably impossible. But he nodded anyway. "Strictly professional," he said. "Good." She signed the contract with a pen from his desk, her signature quick and practiced. "When do I start?" "Monday. That gives you the weekend to move out of that studio and into somewhere safer. I can find my own apartment. I have a property manager who specializes in secure buildings. Let me connect you." Clara opened her mouth to argue, then seemed to realize it was pointless. "Fine, but I'm paying market rate." "Of course." She stood, tucking the contract under her arm. "Thank you. I think. This feels like a mistake, but I'm running out of good options." "It's not a mistake." "You don't know that. I'm rarely wrong about people. Everyone's wrong sometimes." She moved toward the door, then paused. "Your daughter, Emma, does she know about any of this?" "No, and I'd like to keep it that way for now." "Agreed. Kids don't need to know about the messy parts." Something passed across her face, grief maybe, or regret. "She seems like a good kid." "She is." "Then don't let this, whatever we're doing, put her in danger." "I won't." Clara nodded and left, and Adrian stood at his window watching her cross the lobby below. She moved like someone used to being watched, her posture careful, her path deliberate. Jennifer knocked on his door. "You have a 2 o'clock with the Berlin acquisition team." "Cancel it." "Adrian, they flew in specifically for this meeting." "Reschedule, something came up." Jennifer gave him a look that suggested she knew exactly what had come up, but was too professional to comment. "I'll handle it." The rest of the day, Adrian spent building a network. He called in favors, contacted people he hadn't spoken to in years, reached out to investigators who specialized in financial crimes. By evening, he had a team assembled, quiet people, discreet people, the kind who understood that sometimes the right answer wasn't legal but was necessary. Emma was at a friend's house when he got home. Mrs. Chen had left dinner in the refrigerator with instructions written in her sharp handwriting. He ate standing at the counter, reading through reports his new team had already started generating. Thorn Financial was dirty. Not just dirty, rotten straight through. Money laundering, fraud, connections to people whose names appeared in sealed court documents. Damien Thorn had built an empire on other people's misery, and Clara had gotten too close to seeing it. Adrian's phone rang. "Unknown number," he answered. "Vale." "Mr. Vale." The voice was smooth, educated, familiar from YouTube videos and conference panels. "This is Damien Thorn. I believe we should talk." Adrian's blood went cold. "About what?" "About Clara Rousseau, or Hayes, or whatever she's calling herself these days." Thorn sounded amused. "She's working for you now. That's unexpected." "I hire talented people." "You hire damaged goods. There's a difference." A pause. "She's probably told you stories. About me. About what happened. I want you to know they're lies." "I haven't asked her about you, but you will. And when you do, remember that Clara is very good at playing the victim. It's one of her few talents." Adrian kept his voice level. "Is there a point to this call?" "The point is a warning. Clara is a thief and a liar. Getting involved with her will damage your reputation, and your reputation is all you have in this business." "My reputation can handle itself." "Can it?" Thorn's voice hardened. "I'd hate to see someone like you, successful, respected, get dragged down by association with a criminal." "She was never convicted. Only because she ran before the trial could finish, but the evidence was clear." "Was it?" Adrian walked to his window, looking out at the city lights. "Because I've been looking at the evidence, Thorn, and it's interesting how much of it seems to have appeared after Clara refused to marry you." Silence on the line, then, "You're making a mistake." "Probably. I make them sometimes." "This one will cost you." "Maybe. But I'm expensive, so it'll probably be worth it." He hung up before Thorn could respond. His hands were shaking, not from fear, from anger, the casual cruelty in Thorn's voice, the entitled assumption that threats would work, the way he'd talked about Clara like she was property that had misbehaved. Adrian called Clara. She answered on the first ring. "What's wrong?" "Thorn just called me." "What?" Her voice pitched higher. "How did he get your number?" "He's resourceful, and wants me to know you're a liar and a thief." Clara was quiet for a moment. "Do you believe him?" "No." "Why not? You barely know me." "Because liars don't usually run away from money and power. They run toward it." He sat down on his couch. "And because he called you damaged goods, which tells me everything I need to know about him." "He's dangerous, Adrian. If he called you, it means he's paying attention. Good. Let him pay attention. You don't understand. Damien doesn't make idle threats. Neither do I. Adrian rubbed his face. Listen to me. I need you to be completely honest. Is there anything at all that he could use against you? Anything that would make his accusation stick? Clara hesitated, and in that hesitation, Adrian heard the weight of secrets. When I left, I took something. Took what? Files. Financial records. Everything I could copy before he realized I knew. I've had them on an encrypted drive for 3 years. Where is it? In a safety deposit box. Under a different name, different bank. Adrian stood, pacing. That's it. That's how we build the case. Adrian, those files are the reason he wants me dead. If he finds out I still have them, then we move fast. His mind was already working through logistics. You get those files, bring them to me. I'll have my team analyze them, find what we need. And then what? Then we take everything he has and burn it to the ground. Clara laughed, but it was brittle. You say that like it's easy. It won't be easy, but it'll be satisfying. This isn't a game. I know. He stopped pacing. Clara, I know this is terrifying, and I know you don't trust me yet, but I'm good at what I do, and what I do is take complicated, broken things and fix them. I'm not broken. I didn't say you were, but Thorne broke your life. Let me help you rebuild it. She was quiet for so long he thought she'd hung up. Finally, the bank opens at 9 tomorrow. I'll get the files. I'll meet you there. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to. He softened his voice. You're not alone in this anymore, Clara. Get used to it. After they hung up, Adrian sat in the dark of his living room and thought about choices. He'd made plenty of bad ones. Married too young, worked too much, missed moments with Emma he'd never get back. But this didn't feel like a bad choice. It felt like the first good one he'd made in years. Emma came home an hour later, bubbling with stories about her friend's new puppy, and could they please get a dog, even though she knew the answer was no, but maybe if she asked enough times. Still no, Adrian said, but he was smiling. You're in a good mood. Emma studied him. Did something happen? I hired someone new at work. Is it Clara? He should have known. How did you... You've been weird since we stopped going to the restaurant, and you've been on your phone a lot, and you have that look. What look? The one where you're solving a problem. Emma flopped onto the couch next to him. So is it Clara? Yes. She's going to help with international projects. Cool. Emma grinned. When do I get to see her again? This is a work thing. It's not... We're not... You're not what? Adrian didn't have a good answer for that. The next morning, he met Clara outside a small bank in Ballard. She looked like she hadn't slept. Dark circles under her eyes, coffee cup gripped in both hands. You okay? He asked. Define okay. They went inside together. Clara handled the paperwork, disappeared into the vault, emerged 20 minutes later with a small metal box. She didn't open it until they were in his car. Inside was a hard drive the size of a deck of cards. This is it? Adrian asked. 3 years of financial records, transactions, emails, internal memos, everything I could get before I ran. Clara turned it over in her hands. I've looked at it maybe twice. Every time I do, I remember why I ran instead of fighting. Can I see? She handed it to him. The drive was labeled with a date, the day before her arrest. Her handwriting was small, precise. What's on here? Adrian asked. Proof that Thorne Financial is a front. That Damien's been laundering money for arms dealers, human traffickers, people who make him look like a saint. Clara's voice was flat, reciting facts. Proof that he fabricated the embezzlement charges to discredit me before I could go public. Proof of everything. Then why didn't you use it? Because I was 27 and terrified and my own family believed him over me. She took the drive back. And because using it meant admitting I'd stolen confidential files, which is actually a crime, unlike the embezzlement I didn't do. Adrian understood the trap. You were protecting yourself. I was running away. There's a difference. Running away kept you alive. That's not nothing. Clara looked at him, something shifting in her expression. You really believe that? I do. Why? Most people would call me a coward. Most people haven't been hunted by someone with unlimited resources. He started the car. And most people don't speak 6 languages and rebuild their entire life from nothing. That's not cowardice, Clara. That's survival. She didn't respond, just stared out the window as they drove back to his office. His team was waiting, 4 people Clara didn't know, sitting around his conference table with laptops and legal pads. Adrian introduced them quickly. Sarah Chen, forensic accountant, Marcus Wu, corporate investigator, Jennifer Ross, lawyer who specialized in financial crimes, and David Kim, someone whose job title Adrian described vaguely as problem solver. "This is Clara Rousseau," Adrian said. "She's going to show you what Damien Thorne's been hiding." Clara set the hard drive on the table like it might explode. "Everything you need is there, probably more than you want." Sarah plugged it into her laptop, started scrolling through files. Her eyes widened. Wow, this is years of data." 3 years, Clara said, plus historical records going back another 5. "This is going to take time to analyze," Marcus said, already making notes. "We don't have time," Clara said. "Thorne knows I'm here. He called Adrian last night. That means he's moving." "Then we move faster." Adrian looked at his team. "I want a preliminary analysis by Monday. Full breakdown by end of next week. Find everything that connects to criminal activity. Find everything we can use."
"And what are we using it for exactly?" Jennifer asked. "Because if you're thinking of going to the police with stolen files, I need to advise you about the legal ramifications." "I'm not going to the police." Adrian turned to Clara. "I'm going to destroy him the same way he destroyed you, publicly, completely. No coming back from it." "That's going to make enemies," David said quietly. "I have enemies. I'll have more." Clara stood. "I should go. Let you all work." "Stay," Adrian said. "You know this material better than anyone. We need you here." "I'm not good at this, the teamwork thing." "You'll learn." She hesitated, then sat back down, and Adrian watched his team absorb this new person into their circle. Sarah asked technical questions. Marcus wanted timelines. Jennifer needed context, and Clara answered each one precisely. Her fear gradually replaced by something else. Focus, maybe. Or anger finding a productive outlet. They worked until late afternoon, breaking only when Adrian ordered pizza and made everyone eat. Clara barely touched her food, too absorbed in explaining transaction patterns to Sarah. "Look at this one," she said, pointing to the screen. 60 million moving from this account to this offshore shell company, which then distributes it across 4 countries in amounts just below reporting thresholds. "Classic structuring," Sarah muttered. "And it's all documented?" "Thorne documents everything. It's his weakness. He thinks being organized makes him untouchable." "It usually does," Marcus said. "Unless someone on the inside turns witness." Everyone looked at Clara. "I'm not testifying," she said flatly. "I'm not putting myself in that position." "You might not have a choice," Jennifer said gently. "If this goes to trial—" "It won't go to trial. We're not doing this legally, remember?" Adrian leaned back in his chair. "What if we did both?" "Both what?" Clara asked. "Legal and illegal. We build an airtight case, hand it to the FBI with your files as evidence. But we also leak the information publicly, to journalists, to Thorne's investors, to everyone who matters. Even if he beats the criminal charges, his reputation is destroyed." "He'll come after me," Clara said. "He's already coming after you." "At least this way you hit back." Clara looked around the table at these people she'd just met, who were already planning to upend their lives for hers. "Why are you all doing this? None of you know me." "We know you," Sarah said simply. "Adrian doesn't bring people into the inner circle unless they're worth it." "Inner circle," Clara repeated. "Is that what this is?" "That's exactly what this is," Adrian said. They worked until midnight, ordering more food, caffeinating beyond reason, building a case that would take down an empire. Clara had thought she'd spend this day packing her bags and planning her exit from Seattle. Instead, she was sitting in a conference room surrounded by people who actually believed her. It was terrifying. When everyone finally left, Clara lingered, gathering her things slowly. Adrian was shutting down computers, putting away files. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For believing me. For not asking if I'm lying." "You're not lying." "How do you know?" He looked at her across the conference table. "Because liars don't keep evidence that could incriminate them. They destroy it and run. You kept it because you knew someday you might need to fight back. Or because I'm too stubborn to let go."
Maybe it's the same thing. Clara smiled slightly. Your daughter was right. You do look at me weird. Weird how?
Like I'm a puzzle you're trying to solve.
Maybe you are. I'm not that complicated. Everyone's that complicated. He walked around the table. Get some rest, Clara. Monday's going to be intense. It's Saturday. Technically, I don't start until Monday. Technically, you started the moment you handed over that drive. She couldn't argue with that. Adrian drove her back to her hotel. A different one. More secure. Arranged by his team. She got out of the car, then paused. Adrian? Yeah? If this goes wrong, if Thorne comes after you or your daughter, it won't. But if it does, then we'll handle it. He said it with such certainty that Clara almost believed him. I don't abandon people, Clara. Remember that. She nodded and went inside, and Adrian sat in his car for a long time afterward, thinking about promises he wasn't sure he could keep. Monday morning, Clara showed up at Adrian's office building wearing clothes that actually fit. New ones purchased over the weekend with money from her first paycheck that hadn't even cleared yet. She'd used a credit card she'd been afraid to touch for 3 years, half expecting it to trigger some alarm in Damien's network. Nothing happened. Just a receipt and a bag of professional attire that made her feel like someone she used to be. Jennifer met her in the lobby with a security badge and a tablet full of NDAs. Sign these, Jennifer said, walking toward the elevators. Standard confidentiality agreements. Also one specifically about the Thorne investigation that basically says if you talk to anyone outside this building about what we're doing, we can sue you into oblivion. Comforting. It protects everyone, including you. Jennifer pressed the button for the 15th floor. Adrian's in meetings until 10, but Sarah wants to walk you through the preliminary findings. We've already found some interesting discrepancies. Clara's new office was smaller than Adrian's, but still nicer than anywhere she'd worked in 3 years. Windows overlooking the city, actual furniture, a computer that didn't take 5 minutes to boot up. This is too much, she said. It's standard, Jennifer replied. Well, standard for senior consultants, which is apparently what you are now. Sarah appeared in the doorway, holding a laptop and looking like she hadn't slept. Clara, good. I need you to explain something. They spent the next 2 hours going through financial records, Clara translating the chaos of Thorne's accounting into something comprehensible. She'd forgotten how good she was at this, seeing patterns and numbers, understanding the story behind the transactions. It felt like using muscles she'd let atrophy. Here, Clara pointed at the screen. This series of transfers. They're listed as equipment purchases, but the amounts don't match any actual equipment costs, and they're all going to the same shell company in the Caymans. How do you know they don't match equipment costs? Because I used to authorize equipment purchases. I know what things cost. Clara pulled up another file. And look at the dates. Every transfer happens exactly 3 days after a large deposit from this account here. Sarah's eyes widened. That's a known front for arms trafficking. I know. You knew 3 years ago. I knew 3 years ago, Clara confirmed. I tried to tell people, no one wanted to hear it. Adrian walked in carrying coffee and looking tired. How bad is it? Bad, Sarah said. Like federal prison bad. We've found money laundering, fraud, probable ties to weapons trafficking, and that's just from the first pass. Can we prove it? With Clara's testimony? Absolutely. Everyone looked at Clara, who felt her stomach drop. I already said I'm not testifying. Clara, Adrian started. No, you don't understand what you're asking. Damien has connections everywhere. Police, judges, prosecutors. People disappear when they testify against him. People disappeared before social media and public scrutiny, Jennifer said. We make this loud enough, visible enough, and it's harder for him to make you vanish. Harder isn't impossible. Adrian set down his coffee. What if we didn't need you in court? What if we built a case so airtight that your testimony was just supporting evidence? How? Clara asked. We find someone else on the inside, someone currently working at Thorne Financial who's willing to flip. Clara laughed bitterly. Good luck. Damien pays well and threatens better. No one's going to risk it. Everyone has a price, Marcus said, appearing in the doorway. Or a pressure point. We find the right person, apply the right leverage. You're talking about blackmail. I'm talking about persuasion. Clara looked at Adrian. Is this what you do? Just casually discuss blackmail in morning meetings? This is what we do when legal options aren't working, Adrian said quietly. I'm not proud of it, but I'm pragmatic. And if I'm not comfortable with that, then we find another way. She studied his face, looking for deception and finding only exhaustion. He meant it. If she drew a line, he'd respect it, even if it made everything harder. Fine, Clara said. Find your inside person, but I want to know who it is before you approach them. Over the next week, Marcus compiled dossiers on every current Thorn Financial employee. They spread them across the conference table like some grim version of a dating app. Headshots and employment histories and personal details that made Clara uncomfortable. This one, Marcus said, tapping a photo. Rebecca Santos, junior analyst, been there 2 years. Recently passed over for promotion despite excellent performance reviews. Disgruntled employee, Sarah said. Classic flip candidate. Clara studied Rebecca's photo. Young, maybe 26, with the kind of eager smile people wore in corporate headshots before the job beat it out of them. She works in the division I used to run. She'd have access to current records. Can you reach out to her? Adrian asked. Me? No. Damien's probably told everyone I'm a criminal. She wouldn't take my call. What if someone else made the introduction? Jennifer pulled up Rebecca's LinkedIn profile. She's connected to half the finance people in Seattle. We could have someone she trusts make an introduction. Who does she trust? Clara asked. According to her social media, she's close with another analyst named David Park. They went to grad school together. Jennifer scrolled through photos. And David Park is married to someone who works at Vail Industries. Adrian smiled. Well, that's convenient. It took 3 days to arrange a casual coffee meeting between Rebecca and Jennifer, orchestrated through the David Park connection to seem completely natural. Clara waited in Adrian's office, pacing, while Jennifer made the approach. Stop moving, Adrian said from his desk. You're making me anxious. This is a terrible idea. It's the only idea we have. What if she says no? What if she tells Damien we approached her? Then we adapt. Clara sat down, stood up again. You're very calm about this. One of us has to be. His phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. She's interested. Setting up a follow-up meeting. Adrian showed Clara the message. She read it twice, trying to process. That's it? She's just interested? Apparently being passed over for promotion made her reconsider her loyalties. Or she's going to report this to Damien, and we're all going to end up dead. Your optimism is inspiring. Despite herself, Clara almost smiled. The follow-up meeting happened 2 days later at a restaurant across town, neutral territory, public enough to be safe, but quiet enough to talk. Rebecca showed up looking nervous, clutching a purse like it was a shield. Jennifer made introductions. Rebecca, this is Claire Rousseau. Rebecca's eyes went wide. You're supposed to be a criminal? Dead? Disappeared? Claire sat down across from her. I know what Damien says about me. None of it's true. I saw the news, the charges. Fabricated. All of it. Clara pulled out a tablet, pulled up files. I'm going to show you something, and after you see it, you can decide if you want to walk away or help us destroy him. She walked Rebecca through it, the same evidence she'd shown Adrian's team, the patterns of money laundering and fraud, the documented proof that Thorn Financial was built on criminal enterprise. Rebecca's face went pale. I've been processing some of these transactions, she whispered. I thought they were legitimate. They're not. And if the FBI comes knocking, everyone who touched them goes down, including junior analysts who were just doing what they were told. Is that a threat? It's a warning, Jennifer said. You're young enough that cooperating now could save your career, maybe your freedom. Rebecca looked between them. What do you want from me? Current records, Clara said. Everything you can access without raising suspicion. Transactions, emails, internal memos, especially anything involving offshore accounts. If Damien finds out I'm helping you, he won't. We're careful. He found you, Rebecca pointed out. I ran alone. You'll have us. Clara leaned forward. Look, I know you're scared. I was terrified 3 years ago. I'm still terrified now. But the only way to stop being scared is to fight back. Rebecca was quiet for a long time. Then, I want immunity. Full immunity from prosecution. Jennifer can arrange that, Clara said, glancing at the lawyer. Jennifer nodded. I have contacts at the U.S. Attorney's office. If you cooperate fully, we can negotiate a deal. And my name stays out of the news? Completely confidential. Rebecca took a shaky breath. Okay, I'll do it. But I need time. I can't just download everything at once without someone noticing. How long? Clara asked. 2 weeks. Maybe 3. We don't have 3 weeks. Then you don't have my help. Rebecca stood. 2 weeks minimum. Take it or leave it. Clara looked at Jennifer, who nodded slightly. 2 weeks, but we need regular check-ins, proof you're actually gathering information. Fine. I'll send updates through David. He doesn't know what's happening, and I want to keep it that way. After Rebecca left, Clara slumped in her chair. This is going to go wrong. Maybe, Jennifer said. But it's moving forward. That's something. That night, Adrian picked up Emma from soccer practice and found Clara waiting in his office when he got back to the building. She was sitting in the dark, staring out the window at the city lights. Rough day? He asked, turning on a lamp. Rebecca's going to get caught. She's too nervous, too scared. Scared people can be surprisingly effective. He sat down across from her. You were scared 3 years ago, and you still managed to copy all those files. That was different. I was running on adrenaline and rage. So is she. Clara turned away from the window. What if this doesn't work? What if we build the case and Damien still walks away? Then we try something else. You make it sound simple. It's not simple, but giving up is worse. He studied her face. When's the last time you slept? I sleep. When? She didn't answer. Adrian stood, grabbed his coat. Come on. Where are we going? To get you actual food and maybe convince you to go back to your apartment and rest. I'm fine here. You're sitting in my dark office like some kind of corporate ghost. You're not fine. She wanted to argue but didn't have the energy. They ended up at a diner near Pike Place Market, the kind of place that served breakfast 24 hours and didn't judge anyone's life choices. Clara ordered pancakes she didn't eat while Adrian worked through coffee that was probably his 5th cup of the day. Your daughter, Clara said suddenly. What does she think you do all day? Boring business stuff, meetings, paperwork. Does she know you're helping me? She knows I hired you. She doesn't know the rest. Clara pushed her pancakes around. You should tell her. Tell her what? That I'm investigating a criminal while keeping her new favorite person in my life within arm's reach for safety reasons? When you put it that way, it sounds worse. Everything sounds worse when you actually say it out loud. He smiled slightly. Emma's smart. She'll figure it out eventually. But for now, I'd like to keep her separate from this. That's probably impossible. I know, but I'm trying anyway. They sat in silence for a while, the diner humming with late-night energy around them. Someone's phone was playing music too loud. A couple was arguing quietly in the corner booth. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that 2 tables over, someone was planning to dismantle a financial empire. Clara's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I know what you're doing. Her hand went numb. The phone clattered onto the table. Adrian grabbed it, read the message. His face went hard. When did this come through? Just now. He was already dialing. David, it's Adrian Vale. I need you to pull phone records for Clara's number. Trace the last incoming text. I don't care what time it is. Do it now. Clara couldn't breathe. The diner felt too small, too exposed. Everyone was looking at her, even though no one was actually looking at her. Clara, Adrian's voice cut through the panic. Look at me. She met his eyes. We're okay. We're in public. We're safe. This is just intimidation. He knows. He suspects. There's a difference. Adrian's phone rang. He answered, listened, his expression darkening. You're sure? Okay. Yeah. Thanks. He hung up. The text came from a burner phone, probably disposable, but David traced the cell tower. It pinged from near Thorne Financial Headquarters. Damien's watching us. Or having us watched. Clara stood abruptly. I need to leave. I need to go somewhere he can't find me. You're already somewhere he can't find you. The apartment we set you up in is secure. Clearly not secure enough if he knows I'm working with you. Adrian threw cash on the table, guided her outside. The street was busy despite the late hour, people spilling out of bars and restaurants. He kept one hand on her elbow, scanning faces. We're going back to my building, he said. You'll stay in one of the executive suites tonight. I'm not hiding in your office. You're not hiding, you're being strategic. His car was in a garage 2 blocks away. They walked fast, not running, but not casual either. Clara kept expecting someone to grab her, to feel a hand on her shoulder, or worse, but they made it to the garage without incident. Adrian's car was where he'd left it. He unlocked it, opened her door, and that's when Clara saw it. A photo tucked under the windshield wiper. She pulled it out with shaking hands. It was her, taken that morning, walking into Adrian's building. Someone had been close enough to photograph her without her noticing. "Get in the car," Adrian said, his voice deadly calm. They drove to his building in silence. Adrian called his security team, had them sweep the garage, the lobby, every entry point. Clara sat in the passenger seat feeling like her skin was too tight. The executive suite was on the 20th floor, basically a small apartment with a bedroom, bathroom, and sitting area. Adrian's security team checked it twice before letting them in. "Stay here tonight," Adrian said. "Tomorrow we'll reassess." "He's escalating." "I know. This was a mistake. I should have kept running." "Running didn't work for 3 years. Why would it work now?" Clara sat on the bed, her whole body trembling. "I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to fight someone who's always 10 steps ahead." Adrian sat beside her, not touching, just present. "Then we stopped trying to predict his moves and force him to react to ours." "How?" "Rebecca's gathering evidence. We leak it early. Not everything, just enough to make Thorne's investors nervous. Force his hand before he's ready. That could backfire. Everything could backfire. But at least we're doing something." Clara looked at him, really looked at him. Exhausted, stubborn, refusing to walk away even though he absolutely could. "Why are you doing this?" "I've already told you." "No, really. Why?" He was quiet for a moment. 4 years ago, my wife died. Car accident. Random, senseless, nothing anyone could have prevented. And I was angry at the universe for being so arbitrary, for taking someone good and leaving behind someone like me who didn't know how to be a single parent or how to fill the space she left. Clara waited. "I threw myself into work because work made sense. Money made sense. Deals and acquisitions and problems I could actually solve. But none of it meant anything." He looked at her. "And then I met you. And you were this person who'd been genuinely wronged by someone who deserved consequences. And I thought, maybe this is something I can fix. Maybe this is a problem that actually matters. I'm not a project. I know you're not. You're a person who deserves better than what happened to you. And maybe helping you get that is selfish on my part. But I don't really care." Clara felt something crack open in her chest. "I don't know how to let people help me. I've noticed. I'm serious. Everyone who's ever helped me has wanted something in return. I'm not everyone." She wanted to believe him. The terrifying part was that she almost did. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from the unknown number. "Last warning. Walk away or I'll make you disappear like I should have 3 years ago." Adrian read it over her shoulder. "That's it. We're done playing defense." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to call Damien Thorne and tell him exactly what we have on him." "That's insane." "Probably." He was already dialing. "But I'm tired of him thinking he has all the power." The phone rang 3 times before Thorne answered. "Vale. Calling rather late, aren't we?" "Stop threatening Clara." "I have no idea what you're talking about." "The text, the photo, the intimidation." "Stop!" Thorne laughed, actually laughed. "You think I'm threatened by you? By her? You're playing in a league you don't understand. Try me. I've buried better men than you for less. What makes you think you're special?" Adrian's voice went cold. "Because I have 3 years of your financial records. Every illegal transaction, every shell company, every laundered dollar, and I have people ready to hand it all to the FBI, the SEC, and every major news outlet in the country." Silence on the line. "You're bluffing," Thorne said finally. "Am I? Want to test that theory?" "If you had real evidence, you'd have used it already. I'm using it now. This is your one chance to walk away quietly. Resign from Thorne Financial, liquidate your assets, disappear, or I burn your entire empire to the ground and make sure everyone knows exactly what you are. And if I refuse? Then Clara testifies. The FBI builds a case, and you spend the next 20 years in federal prison explaining to your cellmate how you used to be important." Thorne's breathing was audible. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." "Neither do you." Adrian hung up. Clara stared at him. You just declared war. He declared war 3 years ago. I'm just finally showing up to fight. He's going to come after you now, after Emma. Let him try. I have security, lawyers, and enough money to make his life very difficult. Adrian turned to her. But here's what I need from you. I need you to trust me. Actually trust me, not just go through the motions. I don't know how. Figure it out, because we're past the point of you doing this alone. Clara felt tears burning behind her eyes, frustration and fear, and something else she couldn't name. I hate this. I hate being scared. I hate feeling helpless. Then stop being helpless. You have power, Clara. Use it. What power? I'm a waitress pretending to be a consultant. You're an economist with 3 years of evidence and the knowledge to destroy him. You're the only person who understands his system well enough to dismantle it. That's not helpless. That's dangerous. She wanted to argue, but couldn't find the words. Adrian's phone rang, Sarah's name on the screen. He answered. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Something's right. Sarah sounded breathless. I found something. In the files Clara gave us. There's a pattern I missed before. Transactions that all flow back to one specific account. Whose account? Damien Thorne's personal account. Not the company's. His. Papers rustled in the background. If we can prove he personally profited from illegal transactions, that's fraud. That's prison time regardless of what else we prove. Adrian looked at Clara. How fast can you document this? Give me 3 days. I need to verify the chain of custody and make sure it'll hold up in court. You have 2 days. He hung up and turned to Clara. This is it. This is what we needed. Clara felt something shift. Not hope exactly, but possibility. 2 days isn't much time. It's enough. That night, Clara stayed in the executive suite while Adrian went home to Emma. She tried to sleep but couldn't, kept thinking about Damien's threats and Adrian's impossible confidence and the fact that for the first time in 3 years, she wasn't facing this alone. Somewhere around 3 a.m, her phone rang. Rebecca's number. Hello? Clara. Rebecca sounded terrified. I think someone knows. Someone searched my computer while I was at lunch. They didn't take anything, but files were opened that I didn't open. Clara sat up. Did you see who? No, but there's only one person who has that kind of access to everyone's computers. Damien. What do I do? Act normal. Don't change your routine. Don't access anything sensitive. Clara's mind raced. Can you get the files you've already gathered to us? I have them on a flash drive at home. Bring them tomorrow. Meet Jennifer at the same restaurant, 1 o'clock. Can you do that? I think so. Rebecca, breathe. You're okay. We're going to get through this. After they hung up, Clara called Adrian even though it was late. He answered on the first ring, voice alert. What happened? She told him about Rebecca's call. We need to move faster, he said. If Thorne's suspicious, he'll lock down access. Tell Rebecca to meet Jennifer early. 9 o'clock instead of 1. What if it's a trap? What if Thorne knows and he's using Rebecca to draw us out? Then we spring the trap and deal with it. You make it sound simple. Clara. His voice softened. I know you're scared, but we're close. We have his personal accounts. We have Rebecca's current records. We have everything we need. 1 more day. Can you hold on for 1 more day? She wanted to say no, wanted to run like she'd been running for 3 years, but instead she said, 1 more day. That's all I'm asking. The next morning, Rebecca met Jennifer at a coffee shop downtown. She handed over the flash drive, looking like she might throw up, then disappeared into the crowd before anyone could stop her. Jennifer brought the drive straight to the office. Sarah plugged it in, started downloading files, her expression growing more intense with each folder. This is current, she breathed. These transactions are from last week. And look, here's Damien's personal account again, receiving funds directly from a known trafficking operation. Clara leaned over her shoulder, studying the screen. That's not even hidden. He's getting careless. Or arrogant, Marcus said. He thinks he's untouchable. Let's prove him wrong, Adrian said from the doorway. They spent the day building the final case, assembling documents, creating timelines, verifying sources. By evening, they had a file 200 pages long that documented 3 years of systematic fraud, money laundering, and criminal conspiracy. Jennifer reviewed it with the careful eye of someone who'd put away criminals for decades. This is solid. This is prosecutable. Can we take it to the FBI? Clara asked.
We can. But once we do, it's out of our hands. They'll investigate, which takes time, months, maybe years. Adrian shook his head. We don't wait for the FBI, we go public first. That's risky, Jennifer warned. If the evidence gets challenged, then it gets challenged, but at least everyone knows what he is. Adrian turned to Clara. It's your call, your evidence, your choice. Clara looked at the file on the screen, 3 years of her life, reduced to data and documentation. She thought about the woman she'd been before Damien, confident and capable, the woman she'd become after, scared and hiding, and the woman she might be if she actually did this. We go public, she said, tomorrow morning. Send it to every news outlet, every regulatory agency, everyone who matters. I want the world to know what he did. Adrian smiled. Then let's burn it all down.
They worked through the night, finalizing the package that would go out at 6 in the morning. Adrian had contacts at the Seattle Times, the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, Reuters. Marcus knew investigative journalists who specialized in financial crimes. Jennifer had connections at the SEC and FBI who would receive copies simultaneously with the press. Clara sat in the conference room at 4 in the morning, drinking coffee that had gone cold hours ago, watching her team prepare to detonate her entire past. You should go home, Sarah said, looking up from her laptop. Get a few hours of sleep. I won't sleep. Neither will any of us, but at least pretend to try. Adrian appeared in the doorway. Sarah's right. Go back to the suite, lie down for an hour. I'll wake you before we send everything. Clara wanted to argue, but exhaustion was winning. She made it to the executive suite, collapsed on the bed fully dressed, and was asleep before she could think about what morning would bring. She woke to Adrian shaking her shoulder gently. It's 5:30. We're sending it in 15 minutes. Clara sat up, disoriented. Already? You've been out for an hour. He handed her coffee. Drink this. Then come to my office. The entire team was assembled when she arrived. Sarah, Marcus, Jennifer, David, and a few others Clara didn't know well. They all looked exhausted and wired, running on caffeine and adrenaline. Adrian pulled up the email on the large screen. Attached were PDFs of the full report, spreadsheets of transactions, scanned documents with Damien's signature. The subject line read, Evidence of criminal activity at Thorn Financial for immediate investigation. Last chance to back out, Adrian said to Clara. She thought about the last 3 years. The fear, the running, the person she'd had to become just to survive. Send it. He clicked the button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Sarah's phone started buzzing, then Marcus's, then Adrian's. Journalists responding already, asking for interviews, requesting additional documentation. That was fast, Clara said. Financial scandals move at internet speed now, Jennifer said, scrolling through her phone. The SEC is already acknowledging receipt. FBI's asking for a meeting. Adrian's phone rang. He looked at the screen, showed it to Clara. Damien Thorn. Don't answer it, she said. He answered it anyway, putting it on speaker. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. Damien's voice was ice. Funny. I was about to say the same to you. You think some documents mean anything? I have lawyers who will shred this in court. I have friends who will make sure it never sees a trial. Your friends are reading about you in the Wall Street Journal right now, Adrian said calmly. I'd imagine they're reconsidering the friendship. This isn't over. You're right, it's not. Because in about 3 hours, Clara's going to give a press conference explaining exactly what you did to her, how you fabricated evidence, destroyed her reputation, and spent 3 years hunting her. And unlike your lawyers, she's sympathetic, she's credible, and she has nothing left to lose. She has you to lose, and your daughter. The temperature in the room dropped. Adrian's voice went deadly quiet. Are you threatening my child? I'm stating facts. People close to you tend to have accidents. Ask your wife. Clara watched Adrian's face go white. She'd never seen him angry, frustrated, tired, determined, but not angry. Now rage flickered behind his eyes, controlled but barely. Jennifer, he said without taking his eyes off the phone. Record this conversation and add it to the FBI file. Threatening a minor is a federal offense. Already recording, Jennifer said. You have nothing, Damien said, but his voice had changed. Less confident. I have everything. Your accounts, your transactions, your signature on documents authorizing illegal transfers. I have testimony from current employees. I have 3 years of evidence you thought was destroyed. Adrian leaned toward the phone. And I have something you don't, the moral high ground. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to resign today. You're going to cooperate with investigators. And you're going to leave Clara alone permanently. And if I don't, then I'll spend every dollar I have making sure you spend the rest of your life in prison. And trust me, Damien, I have a lot of dollars. He hung up. The room was silent. Well, Marcus said finally, that escalated. He threatened Emma. Adrian's hands were shaking slightly. He actually threatened my daughter. Clara stood. We need to move her, right now. Get her somewhere safe. She's at school. I have security there already, but that's not enough. He's desperate. Desperate people do stupid things. Adrian was already calling. Mrs. Chen? I need you to pick up Emma from school early. Family emergency. No, I'll explain later. Take her to the house. Don't let anyone in. And I mean anyone. Yes, I know that sounds paranoid. Just do it. Thank you. He looked at Clara. She's getting her in 20 minutes. That's 20 minutes he has. I have security following Mrs. Chen's car. Emma will be fine. But Clara could see the fear in his eyes, the same fear she'd carried for 3 years. This was her fault. She'd brought this danger into his life. I'm sorry, she said quietly. Don't. This isn't on you. He threatened her because of me. He threatened her because he's a psychopath who's losing control. Adrian grabbed his jacket. But he just made a critical mistake. What mistake? He gave me a reason to stop being nice. The press conference was scheduled for 10 o'clock at a hotel downtown, neutral territory, public enough to be safe. Clara had never spoken publicly about what happened 3 years ago. The thought of it made her want to throw up. Jennifer helped her prepare, running through potential questions and how to answer them without accidentally incriminating herself. Stick to the facts, Jennifer coached. Damien fabricated evidence. You fled to protect yourself. You've now provided documentation to authorities. That's the story. What if they ask why I ran instead of fighting? You tell them you were 27 and terrified and didn't have the resources to fight a man with unlimited power. That's not weakness, Clara. That's survival. At 9:30, they drove to the hotel in 2 cars. Adrian with Clara in one, security following in another. The lobby was already filling with reporters setting up cameras. I can't do this, Clara said, watching them through the car window. Yes, you can. I'm going to throw up. There's a bathroom right off the conference room. Use it if you need to. She looked at him. How are you so calm? I'm not. I'm terrified. But I'm better at hiding it than you are. They went through a side entrance, avoiding the main press crowd. A hotel employee led them to a small room where Clara could wait. Jennifer was already there, reviewing notes. The FBI is here, she said. They want to talk to you after the press conference. Great. More pressure. They're on your side, Clara. You're the victim and the witness. They want to help. They didn't want to help 3 years ago. 3 years ago, you didn't have 200 pages of documentation and a billionaire backing your story. Adrian's phone buzzed. He looked at it, frowned. Rebecca's not answering her phone. Maybe she's at work, Sarah suggested. She was supposed to call in sick today. Stay home until this blows over. He tried calling again, straight to voicemail. Clara felt ice in her stomach. Something's wrong. We don't know that. Call David, see if he's heard from her. Adrian called. The conversation was short. He hung up looking grim. David hasn't seen her since yesterday. She texted him last night saying she wasn't feeling well, and he hasn't heard from her since. Damien got to her, Clara said. We don't know that, Jennifer repeated, but she looked worried. Send someone to her apartment, Adrian told Marcus. Right now. Marcus left to make calls. Clara sat down before her legs gave out. Rebecca had risked everything to help them, and now she was missing. This is my fault, Clara whispered. Adrian crouched in front of her. Listen to me. We don't know what happened. Maybe her phone died. Maybe she's actually sick and sleeping. We can't assume the worst. You know what happened. Damien warned us. And if he did something to Rebecca, that's another crime we'll bury him with. It wasn't comforting. At 10 o'clock, Jennifer walked Clara to the podium. The room was packed, More reporters than Clara had expected, cameras everywhere, microphones pointed at her like weapons. She sat down at the table, Adrian on one side, Jennifer on the other. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to clasp them in her lap. Jennifer started with a prepared statement, outlining the basic facts. Then she opened it up for questions.
Miss Rousseau, why did you wait 3 years to come forward? A reporter in the front row, young and aggressive. Clara took a breath. Because 3 years ago, no one believed me. Damien Thorne had successfully convinced everyone, police, prosecutors, my own family, that I was a criminal. Coming forward then would have meant going to prison for crimes I didn't commit. But you did flee the jurisdiction. Doesn't that suggest guilt? It suggests fear. When someone with unlimited resources and powerful connections wants to destroy you, sometimes the only option is to disappear. What changed? Another reporter. Why come forward now? Clara glanced at Adrian. I found people willing to help me fight back. People who believed my story and had the resources to investigate properly. Is it true you're in a relationship with Adrian Vale? No? Clara said it firmly. Mr. Vale hired me as a consultant. Our relationship is strictly professional. But he's bankrolling this entire investigation, isn't he? How is that not a conflict of interest? Adrian leaned forward. I'm funding the investigation because I believe justice delayed is justice denied. Miss Rousseau came to me with credible evidence of criminal activity. I chose to help her pursue that evidence. If that's a conflict of interest, I'll live with it. The questions continued, rapid fire and increasingly hostile. They wanted to know about the flash drive, about Rebecca, about whether Clara had broken any laws in obtaining the evidence. Jennifer fielded most of them, but Clara had to answer enough to feel like she was being slowly shredded. Finally, after 45 minutes, Jennifer called an end to it. Ms. Rousseau has provided full cooperation to federal authorities and will continue to do so. Thank you for your time. They escaped through the side door while reporters shouted after them. Clara made it to the car before her legs gave out completely. She sat in the passenger seat, shaking, while Adrian drove them back to his office. You did great, he said. I almost threw up twice. But you didn't. That's what matters. Her phone started ringing. Unknown numbers, one after another. Clara turned it off. They're going to dig into everything, she said. My past, my family, every mistake I've ever made. Let them. You have nothing to hide. Everyone has something to hide. Back at the office, Marcus was waiting with news. Rebecca's apartment is empty. Looks like she left in a hurry. Clothes in the closet, food in the fridge, but her laptop and phone are gone. Did she run or was she taken? Adrian asked. Can't tell. No signs of struggle, but that doesn't mean anything. Clara closed her eyes. He has her. Or she got scared and ran, Jennifer suggested. She knew this was going public today. Maybe she panicked. We need to find her, Clara said. The FBI's looking, Marcus said. I gave them everything we have on her. It wasn't enough. Nothing felt like enough. The rest of the day was chaos. Phone calls from journalists from the FBI, from Thorne Financial's lawyers threatening defamation suits. Adrian's legal team handled most of it while Clara hid in his office, watching news coverage of the press conference on his computer. She looked terrible on camera, pale, scared, stumbling over words. But she also looked honest, and the documents backing up her story were already spreading across financial news sites. By evening, Thorne Financial's stock had dropped 18%. Major investors were demanding answers. Board members were calling for Damien's resignation. It's working, Sarah said, showing Clara the news feeds. He's hemorrhaging money and credibility. But Rebecca's still missing. The FBI will find her. You don't know that. Adrian appeared in the doorway. Emma's asking about you. Clara looked up. What? She saw the news. Someone at school told her you were on TV talking about crimes and bad people. She wants to know if you're okay. I can't talk to her. Not about this. I'm not asking you to explain the investigation. I'm saying she's worried about you. Come have dinner with us. Adrian, please, she likes you. And honestly, I could use the distraction. Clara let him drive her to his penthouse. A sprawling space with floor-to-ceiling windows and the kind of minimalist furniture that suggested professional decorators. Emma was doing homework at the kitchen counter, but she jumped up when Clara walked in. You're okay. Emma threw her arms around Clara's waist. Dad said you were helping catch bad guys, and I thought maybe you got hurt. Clara hugged her back, surprised by how much she needed this. I'm okay. Just a long day.
Are the bad guys caught? Not yet, but we're working on it. Emma pulled back, studying Clara's face with that unnerving perceptiveness kids sometimes had. You look sad. I'm tired. That's different than sad. Clara glanced at Adrian, who shrugged. Told you. Terrifyingly perceptive. They ordered Thai food and ate at the dining table, Emma chattering about her day while Clara tried to focus on anything other than Rebecca's empty apartment. Adrian kept the conversation light, asking Emma about school and friends and a science project involving volcanoes. Can Clara help me with it? Emma asked suddenly. Clara's busy. I'd like to help, Clara interrupted. What's the project? We have to build a model volcano and make it erupt, but I want mine to be really good, like scientifically accurate. Scientifically accurate volcanoes are harder than the baking soda kind, Emma grinned. I know, that's why I need help. They spent the next hour planning Emma's volcano while Adrian cleaned up dinner. Clara found herself relaxing for the first time all day, lost in discussions of magma chambers and pyroclastic flows with a 7-year-old who asked surprisingly sophisticated questions. You're good with her, Adrian said later after Emma had gone to bed. She's easy to be good with. She is. But most people don't take her seriously. You do. Clara sat on his couch, looking out at Seattle's lights. I was a serious kid. I hated when adults talked down to me. What were you like? As a kid? Quiet, bookish. I learned languages because I liked how they made sense in ways people didn't. Do they? Make sense? More than people do. She turned to face him. Thank you for dinner, for letting me pretend things were normal for a few hours. Things are normal. This is just our normal now. Your normal involves federal investigations and missing witnesses? Apparently. He sat down next to her, careful to keep distance between them. Rebecca's going to turn up. You don't know that. I choose to believe it anyway. Clara wanted to believe it too, but she'd spent 3 years learning that belief didn't change reality. Her phone buzzed. She'd turned it back on to check messages and immediately regretted it. A text from an unknown number. Found your friend. Want to see her again? Come alone. Pier 57, midnight. Clara's hands went numb. Adrian took the phone, read the message. No. He has Rebecca. You don't know that. This could be anyone. It's him. I know it's him. Then we call the FBI. And he kills her before they get there. Clara stood. I have to go. Absolutely not. This is obviously a trap. Of course it's a trap. But if there's a chance Rebecca's alive, then we send someone trained for this situation, not you. Clara grabbed her jacket. She's there because of me. Because she helped me. I'm not letting her die for that. Adrian blocked the door. You walk into that trap and you both die. That's not heroic, Clara. That's stupid. Get out of my way. No. They stared at each other, locked in stubborn standoff. Finally, Adrian said, Fine, we go. Together. With security. And we call the FBI first. He said, Come alone. And you think he's going to follow rules? He's baiting you. We go smart, or we don't go at all. Clara knew he was right. Hated that he was right. Okay, but if anything happens to Rebecca because we waited, it won't. Adrian called Jennifer first, then the FBI, then his security team. Within 30 minutes, they had a plan that Clara didn't like but couldn't argue with. FBI agents would be positioned around Pier 57 before Clara arrived. Adrian's security would follow at a distance. Clara would wear a wire. If anything went wrong, they'd move in. What if he searches me for a wire? Clara asked. Then he finds it and knows we're not playing his game, Jennifer said. But at least you're not going in completely unprotected. They drove to the pier at 11:30, Clara's heart hammering against her ribs. The waterfront was dark and quiet. Most businesses closed for the night. Pier 57 stretched out over the water, a tourist attraction by day, but eerily empty now. I can still go instead, Adrian said for the third time. He wants me. Sending you won't help Rebecca. Adrian gripped the steering wheel. I don't like this. Neither do I. She got out of the car before she could change her mind. The wire was taped to her ribs, small and uncomfortable. The FBI agent who'd installed it promised it was undetectable, but Clara could feel it with every breath. She walked onto the pier alone, footsteps echoing on the wooden planks. Security lights cast strange shadows. The water below was black and restless. Halfway down the pier, she saw a figure leaning against the railing. Damien Thorne looked exactly like his photos. Tall, handsome in that polished way wealthy men maintained well into their 40s. He smiled when he saw her. "Clara, you look terrible." "Where's Rebecca?" "Right to business. I always liked that about you." He pushed off the railing, walked toward her. "No greeting? No hello, Damien? It's been 3 years?" "Where is she?" "Safe. For now." He circled her slowly. "You've been busy. Press conferences, federal investigations. You always were dramatic. You framed me for crimes I didn't commit. I protected my business interests. There's a difference. You destroyed my life. I gave you a life. Everything you had, the job, the apartment, the designer clothes, all of it was because of me. And you repaid me by trying to destroy what I built." Clara kept her hands steady. "You built it on illegal money, on people's suffering. I built it on understanding how the world actually works, which you never did." Damien stopped in front of her, close enough that she could smell his cologne. "You always thought rules mattered, that being right was enough. How'd that work out for you?" "Better than it's working out for you. Your stock is tanking. Your investors are running. You'll be lucky to avoid prison." He laughed. "You think some documents scare me? I've been building insurance policies for years. People in very high places who owe me favors. People who will make sure your investigation disappears into bureaucratic limbo." "The FBI doesn't work that way." "Everything works that way if you have enough money." He grabbed her arm, pulled her close. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to recant. Tell the press you fabricated evidence because you were angry about our breakup. Apologize publicly. Disappear again." "And if I don't?" "Then Rebecca Santos dies, and then Adrian Vale's daughter has a very unfortunate accident, and then everyone you've ever cared about learns what happens when you cross me." Clara felt the wire against her ribs. The FBI was hearing this. They were positioned around the pier, but Damien had his hand on her arm and she could see the gun tucked into his waistband. "Let Rebecca go," she said quietly. "This is between us." "No, this is about teaching you a lesson you should have learned 3 years ago. You don't win against people like me. Maybe I don't, but I can make sure you lose too." His grip tightened. "Where's the original flash drive, the one you had before you gave copies to Vale?" "Safe. Somewhere you'll never find it." "I'll find it. I find everything eventually." He pulled out his phone with his free hand, typed something. "I just texted my associate Rebecca's location. If I don't cancel that message in 5 minutes, he'll kill her. So you have 5 minutes to decide. Recant, or she dies." Clara's mind raced. The FBI was supposed to move in by now. Why weren't they moving? "Think, Clara," Damien said, checking his watch. 4 minutes. Is your pride worth her life?" "My pride? This isn't about pride. This is about justice. Justice is a fairy tale. Power is real, and I have all of it." "Actually," a voice said from behind them, "you don't." Adrian stepped out of the shadows, flanked by 2 FBI agents with guns drawn. Damien's face went white. This wasn't the deal. "There was no deal," Adrian said. "Just you, confessing to multiple felonies on a federal recording." More agents appeared from the darkness. 6, 8, 10 of them, surrounding the pier. Damien looked around wildly, then reached for his gun. "Don't," the nearest agent said. "Hands where we can see them." Damien's hand froze. For a moment, Clara thought he might actually draw anyway, might force them to shoot him. But then his shoulders sagged and he raised his hands. "This isn't over," he said as an agent cuffed him. "Yes," Clara said, "it is." They arrested him there on the pier, read him his rights while more agents peeled off to find Rebecca. Clara stood shaking while Adrian wrapped his jacket around her shoulders. "You okay?" he asked. "Is it actually over?" "The immediate danger, yes. The legal battle? That'll take time. But he's in custody. He can't hurt you anymore." Clara watched them load Damien into a police car. This man who'd haunted her for 3 years, who'd stolen her life and left her with nothing. He looked smaller now, less terrifying. An agent approached them. "We found Rebecca Santos. She's alive, being treated by paramedics. Looks like she was held in a warehouse about 10 minutes from here. She's pretty shaken up, but unharmed. Relief flooded through Clara so intensely she had to sit down. Can I see her? She asked. Tomorrow. Let the doctors check her out tonight. Adrian drove Clara back to his building, neither of them speaking much. The wire had been removed, the FBI had her statement, and somewhere Damien Thorne was being processed into the system he'd thought he was above. I can't believe it's over, Clara said finally. It's not over. There's still the trial, the investigation, all of it. But the scary part is done. The scary part was 3 years long. Then the really scary part is done. She laughed, surprising herself. I don't know what to do now. Now you sleep. Tomorrow you start rebuilding. Rebuilding what? Whatever you want. Your life, your career, your name. He pulled into the parking garage. You're Clara Rousseau again. Not Hayes. Not someone in hiding. You get to be whoever you want to be. The thought was terrifying and thrilling in equal measure. Upstairs, Emma was asleep and Mrs. Chen had left a note saying everything was fine, but Clara better explain what was happening because she was getting too old for this much excitement. Clara smiled reading it. She seems terrifying. She is, but she also loves Emma more than anything, so I forgive her. They stood in Adrian's kitchen, the city lights spread out below them, and Clara felt something shift. The fear that had lived in her chest for 3 years was gone. Not completely. She'd probably always startle at shadows, always check over her shoulder. But the constant terror, the certainty that Damien would find her and destroy her, that was finally gone. Thank you, she said quietly. You already thanked me. I'm thanking you again. You could have walked away at any point. Most people would have. I'm not most people. I've noticed. They looked at each other across the kitchen island, and Clara felt the weight of everything unsaid between them. Emma's teasing about the way Adrian looked at her, Jennifer's knowing glances, the fact that somewhere in the last few weeks, this had stopped being just about justice and started being about something more complicated. But she was exhausted, and he looked like he might fall asleep standing up, so instead of saying any of that, she just said goodnight and went to the guest room he'd prepared. She slept for 12 hours straight, dreamless and deep, and woke to sunlight and the sound of Emma's laughter somewhere in the apartment. The next few weeks were a blur of depositions and interviews and legal proceedings. Rebecca recovered physically but struggled mentally, jumping at loud noises and checking her locks obsessively. Clara visited her often, and they formed an unlikely friendship born from shared trauma. Damien's empire collapsed spectacularly. The FBI investigation uncovered even more crimes than Clara's evidence had shown. Investors sued. Board members resigned. Thorne Financial declared bankruptcy within a month, and Damien himself sat in a federal detention facility awaiting trial, his bail denied after prosecutors argued he was a flight risk. Clara testified before a grand jury, her hands steady this time, her voice clear. She told them everything. The fabricated embezzlement charges, the years of running, the fear that had shaped her entire life. And they believed her. When she finally walked out of the courthouse after her testimony, Adrian was waiting. How'd it go? He asked. They indicted him on 14 counts: fraud, money laundering, witness tampering, threatening a minor. Good. The prosecutor thinks he'll get 20 years minimum. Even better. They walked to his car in silence. Clara felt lighter than she had in years, like she'd been carrying a weight she didn't realize was there until it was gone. What happens now? She asked. Now you decide what you want to do with your life. I meant with us, with this. She gestured vaguely between them. Adrian unlocked the car but didn't get in. What do you want to happen? I don't know. I've spent 3 years surviving. I don't know how to do anything else. Then learn. You're good at learning new things. Clara looked at him. This man who'd upended his comfortable life to help her, who'd risked his safety and his daughters for someone he barely knew. Why did you really do this? The truth, not the noble answer. He was quiet for a long moment. Because you reminded me what it felt like to care about something that mattered, and I'd forgotten that feeling. That's still a noble answer. Fine. Because I was attracted to you, and this seemed like the most elaborate way possible to get your attention. She laughed. That's more honest. Is it working? Maybe. They got in the car and drove back to the life they were building together, one careful decision at a time. And for the first time in 3 years, Clara Rousseau wasn't running from anything. She was running towards something instead, The weeks after Damien's arrest didn't feel like victory at first. They felt like cleanup. Endless meetings with lawyers, paperwork that Clara had to sign in triplicate, interviews with federal investigators who asked the same questions 7 different ways. Her face was all over the news for a while. The sympathetic victim who'd finally gotten justice, and she hated every second of it. "You're a hero," the reporter from CNN said during an interview Clara had been pressured into doing.
I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who got tired of running. But you stood up to a powerful man who destroyed your life. That takes courage. Clara looked directly at the camera. It takes desperation. I was out of options. If I'd had somewhere else to run, I probably would have. The producer cut that part from the final segment. Too honest, apparently. They wanted the inspiring version, not the messy truth. Adrian found her afterward, sitting in the green room, picking at a muffin she hadn't eaten. "You okay?" he asked. "I hate this. The attention. Everyone acting like I'm some kind of inspiration when really I was just scared for 3 years and got lucky." "You weren't lucky. You were strategic. You kept evidence when you could have destroyed it. You found people to help you. You testified when you could have stayed silent. Because you pushed me too. I gave you options. You chose which ones to take." Clara threw the muffin in the trash. "I need this to be over. Actually, over. Not just the scary parts. The trial starts in 6 weeks. After that, it's done." "And then what? I go back to being nobody?" Adrian sat down next to her. "You were never nobody, Clara. You were just hiding." She wanted to believe him. Most days she almost did. Emma's volcano project became a strange anchor point in the weirdness of Clara's new life. Every few days she'd stop by Adrian's penthouse to help Emma refine the design, test different chemical reactions, perfect the structural integrity of the papier-mâché mountain. "It's looking good," Clara said one evening, watching Emma carefully paint realistic lava flows on the sides. "Do you think I'll win?" Emma asked. "Win what?" "The science fair. Dad says winning isn't important, but I want to win." Clara smiled. "Then you'll probably win. You've put in more work than anyone else. That's what Dad says about everything. Work harder than everyone else and you'll succeed." "Is he right?" Emma considered this seriously. "Mostly, but sometimes you work really hard and still lose. Like last year I worked super hard on my spelling test and still got a C. What happened?" "I studied the wrong words. Dad printed out last year's list by accident." Emma shrugged. "So I learned that working hard is important, but so is knowing what you're working toward." Clara looked at this 7-year-old dispensing wisdom and wondered when she'd gotten so smart. Adrian appeared in the doorway. "Clara, can I talk to you for a minute?" They went to his home office, a room Clara had been in a dozen times now, but still felt too expensive to touch anything. "The prosecutors called," Adrian said. "They want you to testify at trial, not just the grand jury testimony, actual trial testimony." Clara's stomach dropped. "I thought maybe they wouldn't need me. They have Rebecca. They have the documents. They have everything. But you're the one who can explain the personal impact, what he did to you specifically." "I don't want to do that in front of a courtroom full of people." "I know, but Jennifer thinks it could be the difference between 20 years and 40. Clara sat down in the chair across from his desk. 40 years. He'd die in prison. Yes. Good. Adrian looked surprised. "I thought you might have more complicated feelings about that." "Why?" "He tried to destroy me. He threatened your daughter. He held Rebecca hostage. Why should I feel complicated about him spending the rest of his life paying for that? I don't know. You seem like the kind of person who'd struggle with revenge." "This isn't revenge. It's consequences." Clara met his eyes. "And yes, I'll testify. Tell the prosecutors I'll do whatever they need." The trial started on a cold morning in February, the kind of Seattle weather that made everything feel gray and oppressive. Clara wore a suit Jennifer had helped her pick out, professional but not flashy, sympathetic but credible. "Remember," Jennifer coached in the hallway outside the courtroom, "answer only what they ask. Don't elaborate. Don't get emotional. Just facts." "What if I do get emotional?" "Then you get emotional. You're human. The jury will understand." Inside, the courtroom was smaller than Clara expected. She'd imagined something grand and imposing,
but it was just a room with uncomfortable chairs and fluorescent lighting. Damien sat at the defense table in an expensive suit, flanked by lawyers who probably cost more per hour than Clara used to make in a week. He looked at her when she walked in. Just looked. No expression, like she was a stranger he vaguely recognized. Clara took the stand, swore to tell the truth, and tried not to throw up. The prosecutor was a woman named Sarah Chen, no relation to Adrian's forensic accountant, who'd built her career on financial crimes. She walked Clara through the basics first, her education, her career, how she'd met Damien. "And when did your relationship with Mr. Thorne become romantic?" Sarah asked. "About 6 months after I started working at Thorne Financial. We'd been working late on a project and he asked me to dinner." "How long were you together?" 3 years. We were engaged for the last year of that." Sarah pulled up a photo on the screen, Clara and Damien at some charity gala, both smiling, her wearing a ring that had cost more than her student loans. "Is this you?" Sarah asked. "Yes." "You look happy." "I was. Or I thought I was. It's hard to remember now." Damien's lawyer objected. "Speculation, Your Honor." "Sustained. Ms. Rousseau, please stick to facts you can verify." Clara nodded. Sarah continued. "When did you first become aware of illegal activity at Thorne Financial?" "About 4 months before Damien framed me. I was reviewing transaction records for a client presentation and noticed inconsistencies, money moving in patterns that didn't match legitimate business activity." "What did you do?" "I asked Damien about it, privately at first because I assumed there was an explanation." "What did he say?" "He said I was seeing problems where there weren't any, that I was being paranoid." "Did you believe him?" "Not really. So I kept looking, and I found more offshore accounts, shell companies, transactions that were clearly laundering money from criminal enterprises." "And you documented this?" "Yes. I copied everything I could find, financial records, emails, internal memos. I knew if I was going to accuse him, I needed proof." "What happened when you confronted him with this proof?" Clara took a breath. "He asked me to marry him sooner, said we should move the wedding up, go to Vegas that weekend. I realize now he was trying to make sure I couldn't testify against him." "Spousal privilege." "Yes. But I said no. I told him I couldn't marry him until he explained what was happening with the company finances." "How did he react?" "He got quiet, really quiet, which scared me because Damien was never quiet. Then he said I should be careful making accusations I couldn't prove." "Was that a threat?" "I didn't think so at the time. Now I know it was." Sarah walked her through the rest, the fabricated embezzlement charges, the arrest, the way every piece of evidence had been manufactured to frame her. Clara's voice stayed steady through most of it, but when she described watching the news report about her arrest while hiding in a motel room 2 states away, she felt tears burning behind her eyes. "Why didn't you stay and fight the charges?" Sarah asked. "Because I was 27 and terrified. Because everyone believed him, the police, the prosecutors, even my own family. I had no money, no lawyers, no one who would listen. Running seemed like the only option that didn't end with me in prison for crimes I didn't commit." "And for 3 years you lived under a false name?" "Yes." "Working as a waitress despite having an MBA from Wharton?" "Yes." "Why didn't you try to rebuild your career?" "Because Damien was looking for me. Any professional job would require background checks, references, a paper trail. I had to stay invisible." "How did that feel? Giving up everything you'd worked for?" Clara looked at Damien. He was watching her now, actually paying attention. "It felt like dying," she said quietly. "Like the person I'd been just stopped existing and someone else took her place. Someone smaller, someone scared all the time." The defense attorney objected again, but the judge allowed it. Sarah asked a few more questions, then turned Clara over to cross-examination. Damien's lawyer was a man named Robert Fitzgerald, silver-haired and expensive-looking. He approached the stand with the kind of confidence that came from winning more often than losing. "Ms. Rousseau, you claim you were framed for embezzlement, but isn't it true that you had access to all the accounts in question?" "I had access because it was my job. And isn't it true that you were having financial difficulties at the time of your arrest?" "No." "You'd recently taken out a loan for $30,000. For my mother's medical bills. She had cancer. That's not financial difficulty, that's family responsibility."
But you needed money. Everyone needs money, Mr. Fitzgerald. That doesn't make them criminals.
He didn't like that answer. You claim you ran because you were scared. But isn't it true you ran because you were guilty?
No. You claim Mr. Thorne fabricated evidence, but you have no proof of that, do you? I have 3 years of financial records showing exactly how he fabricated it. Records you stole from your employer. Records I preserved to prove my innocence. Fitzgerald spent an hour trying to trip her up, but Clara had lived this story for 3 years. She knew every detail, every date, every transaction. He couldn't shake her because she was telling the truth. Finally, he gave up, and she was dismissed. She walked past Damien's table on her way out, and he leaned over to whisper something to his lawyer, probably planning their next attack. Clara didn't care anymore. She'd said her piece. Adrian was waiting in the hallway. You were amazing. I almost cried. That's human. The jury needs to see you're human. What if they think I'm lying? They won't. I was watching them. They believe you. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Rebecca testified, her voice shaking but her facts solid. Sarah Chen, Adrian's forensic accountant, walked the jury through the financial evidence with PowerPoint presentations that made money laundering look like the simple crime it actually was. The FBI agents who'd arrested Damien testified about the threats he'd made on that pier. Damien's defense was that he'd been betrayed by trusted employees who'd stolen from him and framed him to cover their tracks. It was a nice story. No one believed it. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they came back, Clara was sitting in the gallery next to Adrian, holding his hand without really thinking about it. On the count of fraud in the first degree, how do you find? Guilty. On the count of money laundering? Guilty. 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 14 counts, 14 guilty verdicts. Damien's face went white. His lawyers started whispering frantically. The judge scheduled sentencing for 3 weeks out. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Clara again. She gave a brief statement Jennifer had prepared, thanked the prosecutors and the jury, and said she was looking forward to moving on with her life. Someone asked if she felt vindicated. I feel tired, Clara said honestly, and relieved, and like maybe I can finally stop looking over my shoulder. Adrian drove her back to his office, where the team was waiting with champagne and genuine happiness. They'd all worked on this for months, invested time and energy and belief into a case that could have fallen apart at any moment. To justice, Marcus said, raising his glass. To not giving up, Sarah added. To second chances, Jennifer said, looking at Clara. Clara raised her glass but didn't drink. She wasn't much of a drinker anymore. 3 years of trying to stay invisible had trained her to avoid anything that might make her careless. Later, after everyone had left and the office was quiet, Clara found Adrian in the conference room where they'd first examined her evidence. Thank you, she said. I know I keep saying that, but I don't know what else to say. You don't have to say anything. Yes, I do. You risked everything for someone you barely knew. Your reputation, your safety, Emma's safety. That's not nothing. Adrian turned off the projector they'd been using to review case notes. Can I tell you something? Always. When my wife died, I thought I'd used up my one chance at building something meaningful. I had Emma, and she was everything, but I felt like the rest of my life was just going to be work and money, and nothing that actually mattered. Adrian, let me finish. Meeting you reminded me that meaningful things happen when you're not looking for them, that sometimes helping someone else is how you help yourself. Clara sat down at the conference table. Is this the part where you tell me you have feelings for me? Would that be terrible? It would be complicated. I'm okay with complicated. I'm your employee. You're a consultant, different category. I'm still processing trauma from the last relationship I was in. I know. I'm not asking you to process faster. Clara looked at him across the table where they'd spent countless hours building a case against the man who'd destroyed her life. What are you asking? For you to consider the possibility that this, us, might be something worth exploring, eventually, when you're ready, if you're ever ready. And if I'm never ready, then we stay friends and colleagues and co-conspirators in Emma's science projects. I'm not going anywhere, Clara. She wanted to say yes, wanted to lean into the possibility of something good after so much bad, but 3 years of fear had taught her to be careful with trust.
Can I think about it? She asked. Take all the time you need. Damien's sentencing happened on a Wednesday morning. The judge gave him 42 years, more than the prosecutors had asked for, less than he probably deserved. He'd be 70 when he got out, if he lived that long. Clara attended the sentencing but didn't make a statement. She'd said everything she needed to say at trial. Watching him get led away in handcuffs was statement enough. Afterward, she went to visit her mother for the first time in 3 years. Her mom lived in a small house in Portland, the same house Clara had grown up in. She answered the door looking older than Clara remembered, thinner, with gray in her hair that hadn't been there before. Clara, she said, like she couldn't quite believe it. Hi, Mom. They stood there for a long moment. Then her mother pulled her into a hug that smelled like the lavender soap she'd used for as long as Clara could remember. I'm sorry, her mother said, crying. I'm so sorry I didn't believe you. It's okay. It's not okay. You're my daughter. I should have believed you. Clara held her tighter. Damien was convincing. He convinced everyone. That's not an excuse. Her mother pulled back, wiping her eyes. Come in, please. I've been following the trial. I wanted to call, but I didn't know if you'd want to hear from me. They sat in the kitchen where Clara had done homework and eaten countless dinners. Her mother made tea and they talked carefully at first, then more openly as the afternoon wore on. What are you going to do now? Her mother asked. I don't know. I have a job with Adrian's company, but I don't know if I want to stay in Seattle. Too many memories, maybe. Or maybe it's where you finally won. Clara hadn't thought of it that way. Her mother reached across the table, took her hand. I know I don't have the right to give you advice anymore, but if I did, I'd tell you to stop running. You've been running for 3 years. It's time to stand still and build something. I don't know how. Neither did I after your father left. But you figure it out, one day at a time. Clara stayed for dinner, helped her mother cook pasta the way they used to when Clara was young. It wasn't forgiveness exactly. That would take time. But it was a start. Back in Seattle, Emma's science fair was on a Saturday. Clara went with Adrian, sat in the elementary school gymnasium surrounded by papier-mâché solar systems and baking soda volcanoes that all looked remarkably similar. Emma's volcano stood out. It was bigger, more detailed, with actual scientific accuracy in the lava composition and eruption pattern. She'd written a 10-page report explaining the geology of volcanic formation and included a working seismograph. This is excessive, Clara told her. Emma beamed. I know, isn't it great? The judges came through, asked Emma questions she answered with the confidence of someone who'd actually done the work. When they announced winners 3 hours later, Emma took first place in her grade. I told you, Emma said, hugging her blue ribbon. Hard work plus knowing what you're working toward equals success. Adrian bought ice cream to celebrate, and they sat in a park near the school while Emma chattered about next year's project. She's going to try to build a rocket, Adrian said later, after Emma had run off to play on the swings. A functional rocket? Probably. You're in trouble. I've been in trouble since the day she was born. He watched Emma play, his expression soft. Best trouble I've ever been in. Clara thought about that, how the best things in life often came disguised as complications. How Adrian had seemed like a complication when he first showed up at Rosewood Kitchen, and now she couldn't imagine the last few months without him. I've been thinking, she said. About? About what you asked. About us. Adrian turned to look at her. And? And I'm still scared. I'm probably always going to be a little scared after what happened with Damien, but I'm also tired of letting fear make all my decisions. What does that mean? It means yes, or maybe, or let's try and see what happens. Adrian smiled, the kind of smile that transformed his whole face. That's the least romantic acceptance I've ever heard. I'm out of practice with romance. We'll work on it. Emma ran back over, demanding they push her on the swings. Clara spent the next 20 minutes pushing a 7-year-old who giggled every time she went high enough to see over the fence. Higher, Emma called. I want to see the whole city. Clara pushed harder, watching Emma soar up and out, fearless in the way only children could be. And she thought maybe that was what she needed to learn again. Not to be unafraid, but to be brave enough to try anyway. 6 months later, Clara stood in front of a mirror in Adrian's bedroom, adjusting a dress she'd spent too much money on. It was pale blue, simple, nothing like the designer clothes she'd worn when she was engaged to Damien. You look nervous, Adrian said from the doorway. I am nervous. It's just dinner with my entire board of directors and their spouses. Very casual. Clara glared at him in the mirror. You said it was a small thing. It is small. Only 20 people. That's not small. That's a party. He came up behind her, adjusted the necklace she'd been struggling with. You've testified in federal court. You can handle a dinner party. Federal court was easier. No one expected me to make small talk about golf. Then don't talk about golf. Talk about economics. Or languages. Or volcanic formation. You're interesting, Clara. People will want to talk to you. She turned to face him. What if they ask about Damien? Then you politely tell them it's not something you discuss at dinner parties. What if they're weird about it? About us? Then they're not invited back. He kissed her forehead. Stop worrying. You've faced worse than corporate small talk. The dinner was at a restaurant downtown. One of those places where they didn't put prices on the menu because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. Clara knew most of the people there by name now. Board members who'd supported Adrian's decision to investigate Damien, executives who'd worked with her on various international projects. She'd been working at Vail Industries officially for 4 months now, heading up a new division focused on international partnerships. It turned out companies actually wanted to hire someone who spoke 6 languages and understood complex financial systems. Who knew? Clara! Sarah Chen appeared at her elbow. Not Adrian's forensic accountant, the prosecutor who'd won Damien's case. I didn't know you'd be here. Adrian didn't give me much choice, Sarah laughed. He's stubborn, but you probably knew that. They talked about the case, about Rebecca, who was doing better but still in therapy, about the other victims of Damien's schemes who'd come forward after the trial. You started something, Sarah said. 23 other people have filed complaints now. People he heard over the years who were too scared to come forward. Are you prosecuting them? Some of them. Others are civil suits, but all of them are happening because you were brave enough to go first. Clara didn't feel brave. She felt like someone who'd been cornered and fought back because there were no other options. But maybe that was what bravery actually was. Not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. Dinner was surprisingly painless. Clara made conversation, laughed at appropriate times, and didn't throw up even once. Emma was there too, dressed up and thrilled to be included in a grown-up event. She spent most of dinner telling anyone who'd listen about her plans for next year's science fair. A rocket, she explained to a board member who looked alarmed. A real one that actually flies. How high, the board member asked. High enough to see the whole city. Adrian caught Clara's eye across the table and smiled. She smiled back, thinking about how much had changed in less than a year, how she'd gone from hiding in a studio apartment to sitting at a table with some of Seattle's most powerful people, how she'd gone from being afraid all the time to being afraid only some of the time, how she'd gone from running to standing still. After dinner, Adrian walked her to her car. She'd been living in her own apartment for 2 months now, a real one, in her real name, with a lease that extended beyond 30 days. You survived, he said. Barely. You were great. Everyone loved you. Everyone was polite to me. There's a difference. Take the compliment, Clara. She leaned against her car. Thank you for pushing me to do this. I would have said no if it was just up to me. I know. That's why I didn't make it optional. You're manipulative. I prefer strategically persuasive. She kissed him, there in the parking garage, with the echo of voices from the restaurant still audible. It was the kind of kiss that had taken months to build up to, careful and gradual and worth the wait. Come home with me, Adrian said when they pulled apart. Emma's with you tonight. I know, she's been asking when you're going to sleep over. Apparently her friends all have parents who sleep in the same house, and she doesn't understand why we're weird about it. We're not weird about it. We're taking things slow. It's been 6 months, which is very fast by traumatized person standards. Adrian laughed. Fair point, but the offer stands. Whenever you're ready. Clara thought about her empty apartment, about going home alone like she'd done for 3 years. Then she thought about Emma's laughter and Adrian's steady presence and the possibility of something that felt like family. Okay, she said, let's go home. Emma was still awake when they got there, reading in bed with a flashlight, even though she had a perfectly good lamp. Are you staying over? She asked Clara immediately. Is that okay with you? Obviously. You can sleep in the guest room. Unless you want to sleep in Dad's room, which would be fine too. Ava's parents sleep in the same room and they're not married. Emma, Adrian said, go to sleep. I'm reading. Read tomorrow, sleep now. Emma sighed with the exhaustion of someone much older, but she turned off the flashlight and settled under her covers. Good night, Dad. Good night, Clara. Good night, Em.
Clara ended up in Adrian's room, though they mostly just talked about the dinner, about Emma's upcoming birthday, about a business trip to Tokyo that Clara was leading next month. I never thought I'd travel internationally again, Clara said, lying next to him in the dark. I thought that part of my life was over. Nothing's over unless you decide it is. When did you get so philosophical? I've always been philosophical. You just didn't notice because you were too busy being terrified. She elbowed him. I wasn't that bad. You were sitting on my office floor crying the night we met. Marcus called you. I didn't ask you to come. Best call I ever got. Clara turned to look at him. Do you really believe that? Yes. Meeting you changed everything, made me remember what it felt like to care about something beyond quarterly earnings and acquisition targets. I'm not a project, Adrian. I know you're not. You're a person who deserved help and didn't get it until you found people stubborn enough to insist. She kissed him again, slower this time, and thought about how strange it was that the worst thing that ever happened to her had somehow led to this, to Adrian and Emma and a life she was building instead of surviving. The trial had been over for months, but Clara still had nightmares sometimes. She'd wake up gasping, convinced Damien had found her, that the last year had been a dream and she was still running. But Adrian would be there, or she'd call him, and he'd talk her down until the fear passed. It gets better, her therapist said during one of their sessions. The nightmares, the hypervigilance, the fear, it all gets better with time. How much time? Different for everyone, but you're doing the work. That's what matters. Clara was doing the work. Therapy twice a week, sometimes 3 times when things were hard. Rebuilding relationships with her family, carefully and with clear boundaries. Learning to trust again, which was harder than she'd expected. She had coffee with Rebecca once a month, both of them navigating the weird aftermath of shared trauma. Rebecca had left finance entirely, was working at a nonprofit now, and seemed happier. Do you ever regret it? Clara asked during one of their meetings. Helping me? Every day for the first month after he grabbed me. But no, not anymore. I'm glad it's over. Glad he can't hurt anyone else. 23 other people came forward. Did you know that? Rebecca smiled. I know. I'm one of them. Filed a civil suit last month for the hostile work environment and the kidnapping. My lawyer thinks we'll settle. Good. Make him pay for everything. I plan to. Emma's 8th birthday happened on a Saturday in April. She wanted a science-themed party, which meant Clara and Adrian spent a week setting up experiments and demonstrations in Adrian's backyard. This is excessive, Mrs. Chen said, watching them inflate a weather balloon for some demonstration involving air pressure. Emma deserves excessive, Adrian said. The party was chaos, 15 8-year-olds running around doing experiments, launching bottle rockets, making slime. Clara supervised the chemical reactions while Adrian handled the rockets, and together they managed to get through it without any trips to the emergency room. At the end of the day, after all the guests had left and the backyard was covered in the debris of scientific inquiry, Emma hugged Clara tight. Best birthday ever, she said. Even better than last year? Way better. Because you're here. Clara felt something crack open in her chest. The same feeling she got sometimes when Emma said things that were too honest and too sweet. I'm glad I'm here too. Later, after Emma was in bed and they were cleaning up the wreckage, Adrian said, She asked me if you were going to be her stepmom. Clara dropped the trash bag she was holding. What did you tell her? I told her that was up to you and me to figure out together, and that relationships take time. What did she say? That her friend's parents got married after knowing each other 3 months and they're still married, so time is relative. Clara laughed despite herself. She's not wrong. So what do you think? About being her stepmom? Adrian, we've been dating for 6 months. I know. I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow. I'm asking if you can see it, eventually. Clara looked around the backyard, at the remnants of a party thrown with love and care, and probably too much money. At the house where Emma grew up and Adrian worked too hard, and Mrs. Chen ran things with ruthless efficiency. at the life they were building together, messy and complicated and real. Yeah, she said quietly. I can see it.
3 months later, Clara was offered a position at Georgetown, teaching economics and international finance to graduate students. It was the kind of job she'd dreamed about before Damien, prestigious and challenging, and a chance to rebuild the academic career she'd thought was dead. She almost said yes immediately. Then she thought about what saying yes would mean, moving across the country, leaving Adrian and Emma, starting over again in a place where no one knew her story. You should take it, Adrian said when she told him about the offer. Just like that? You don't want me to stay? I want you to do what's best for you. If that's Georgetown, then go. What about us? We'll figure it out. Long distance, visits, whatever works. Clara looked at him, trying to figure out if he meant it or was just being noble. You're very calm about this. I'm not calm. I'm terrified you'll leave and realize you don't need me. But I'm also not going to ask you to give up your dreams for a relationship. What if my dreams have changed? Have they? She thought about it honestly. A year ago, before the trial, before Adrian, all she'd wanted was to disappear, to be safe. Now she wanted something more complicated, to build something, to matter, to have people who needed her and whom she needed back. I don't know, she admitted. The Clara who would have jumped at Georgetown doesn't exist anymore. I'm not sure who I am now. Then take time to figure it out. The offer's good for 2 weeks, right? 3 weeks. So take 3 weeks. Think about what you actually want, not what you think you should want. Clara spent those 3 weeks in careful consideration. She visited Georgetown, walked the campus, met the faculty. It was everything she'd thought she wanted. She also spent time with Emma, helping with homework and teaching her basic Portuguese phrases for fun. She had dinner with her mother, who was in remission now, and talking about maybe moving to Seattle to be closer. She worked on international deals that challenged her and mattered and made her feel useful. At the end of 3 weeks, she called Georgetown and turned down the offer. Are you sure? The department head asked. This is a competitive position? I'm sure. I appreciate the opportunity, but my life is in Seattle now. After she hung up, Adrian asked, Any regrets? Ask me again in a year. But she didn't have regrets. Georgetown was a good opportunity, but it wasn't her opportunity anymore. She'd spent 3 years running from a life someone else had destroyed. She was done running. Instead, she started building. She took on more responsibility at Vail Industries, building out the international division until it was one of the company's most profitable sectors. She helped Emma with increasingly complex science projects. She had dinner with her mother every other week. She went to therapy and did the work, and slowly became someone who didn't flinch at shadows. And she fell in love with Adrian, slowly and carefully and completely. He proposed on a random Tuesday in October, no grand gesture or elaborate planning. They were in his kitchen making dinner while Emma did homework at the counter, and he just said, We should get married. Clara looked up from the vegetables she was chopping. What? We should get married. Not right away, not tomorrow, but eventually. When you're ready. That's the worst proposal I've ever heard. Is that a no? Emma looked up from her math. Say yes, Clara. He's been carrying that ring around for 3 weeks. Emma, Adrian said. What? You have. I saw it in your desk drawer. Clara looked at Adrian. You've been carrying around a ring? He pulled it out of his pocket, sheepish. I was waiting for the right moment. And you decided the right moment was while I'm holding a knife and covered in vegetable scraps? I decided the right moment was when Emma wouldn't let me wait anymore. Clara set down the knife, looked at the ring, looked at Emma's hopeful face, looked at Adrian who'd shown up on the worst night of her life and refused to leave. Okay, she said. Okay? Yes? Okay. We should get married, eventually, when I'm ready. Are you ready now? Not even a little bit. But ask me again in 6 months. He did ask again 6 months later, with an actual plan this time. And she said yes, really yes, the kind of yes that meant forever. They got married on a Saturday in April, a small ceremony in Adrian's backyard, with Emma as the flower girl, and Clara's mother crying in the front row. Rebecca was there, and Sarah Chen, the prosecutor, and the entire team who'd helped build the case against Damien. Clara wore a simple dress and carried flowers Emma had helped pick out. Adrian wore a suit and looked nervous in a way she'd never seen him. And when they said their vows, promises about partnership and trust and choosing each other every day, Clara felt something settle in her chest. This was home, not the house or the city or even the people exactly. This feeling of being chosen and choosing back, of standing still long enough to build something real. At the reception, Emma gave a speech about how she'd known they should get married from the first time Clara had helped her with her volcano project. Dad was happier when Clara was around, Emma said seriously, and Clara smiled more. And I wanted us to be a real family, not just people who liked each other. We were already a real family, Clara said later, finding Emma at the dessert table. I know, but now it's official. Emma hugged her. I'm glad you stayed. Me too. That night, after the guests had left and Emma was asleep, and Mrs. Chen had somehow cleaned everything despite Clara's protests, Clara and Adrian sat on their back porch looking at the stars. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't gone to Rosewood Kitchen that night? Adrian asked. All the time. And I probably would have run again. Found another city, another name. Spent the rest of my life looking over my shoulder. But you didn't. But I didn't. She took his hand. I got lucky. I found someone stubborn enough to insist I stop running. You found yourself, Clara. I just provided resources and moral support. She leaned her head on his shoulder, thinking about the last 2 years, about testifying in court and turning down Georgetown and learning to be someone's stepmother, about the nightmares that still came sometimes but less often now, about building a life instead of just surviving one. Do you think it ever really ends? She asked. The fear? I don't know, maybe not completely, but I think you learn to carry it better, to not let it make all your decisions. That's very wise. I have my moments. They sat there in comfortable silence, and Clara thought about all the versions of herself she'd been. The confident economist who thought she knew how the world worked, the terrified woman sitting on a motel room floor trying to figure out where to run next, the waitress who kept her head down and tried to disappear, the person who'd finally stopped running and started fighting. She'd been all of those people, and none of them. And someone new entirely. Someone who'd learned that strength wasn't about never being afraid. It was about being afraid and doing the hard thing anyway. Someone who'd learned that second chances weren't given. They were built, carefully and deliberately, one choice at a time. And someone who'd learned that sometimes the worst thing that ever happened to you led you exactly where you needed to be. Clara Rousseau, not Hayes anymore, but Vale now, squeezed her husband's hand and looked up at the stars and thought about tomorrow. About Emma's next science project and the business deal she was closing next week and the life she was building with people who'd chosen to stay. She was done running, done hiding, done being anyone other than exactly who she was. And for the first time in years, that felt like enough.